All right. So next slide, please. All right, I'm looking at the wrong screen. So the latest development has been our Budget Overview Committee meeting and deciding to withdraw the 3 items that they had put on the agenda tonight. Those were items 5, 11, and 12, as to which there were several motions that had been adopted by our committees addressed to those 3 items. So as you see on the screen before you, items now withdrawn and will not be taken up tonight are items 4, 5, 11, 12, 35, and 36. Of the remaining items, we are going to combine, or we will designate for the consent calendar the 18 items that you see there. And when the time comes, the moderator and the moderator pro tem will read those resolutions. And if they remain on our consent calendar, as you know, we don't get committee reports and we have no discussion on consent calendar items. So all we will hear on those would be what the moderator and moderator pro tem say. We will take a vote on those consent calendar items. We will then, based on the reports received, combine for voting purposes 5 items, but into 2 different groups. 3 of them require substitute resolutions, which we don't typically put on the consent calendar. So although there was no controversy, it was simply because they required some changes to the original language. They will be placed on the combined calendar. And group 2 are 2 items that have been proposed to be postponed to October. So, and then remaining will be those items that you see listed as the separate items: 2, 3, 7, 8, 10, 13, 14, 37, 38, and 39. And of those, items 7, 8, 10, and 13 are subject to our second reading rule. And I'll talk a little bit about that. We did have some committee motions to postpone items that were subject to our second read rule. And that's simply inconsistent with our rule. I'll explain that when we get to it. So we will not take up motions to postpone items subject to the second read rule, since they automatically come back at the next meeting. So that is the proposed organization. And I hope everyone understands the need to be flexible. With a large agenda like this, there are a lot of moving parts. We try and put this PowerPoint deck together so that you can look at the screen and know where we are in the meeting. And I guess now I will just talk about motions to postpone. If an item is subject to the second reading rule, it automatically will come back at the next meeting, absent a waiver of that by a 2/3 vote. If we were to actually take up a motion to postpone such an item and it failed by a simple majority, you obviously see that we have a conflict, and our second reading rule cannot be waived by a simple majority. And so these motions postpone second read items are superfluous and will be ruled out of order. And I have alerted, I think, the committees involved. Now, some speakers signed up to speak on those motions to postpone. Obviously, we're not going to accept the motions. We're not going to hear those speakers. Another item is item 3, which our committees knew was not going to go forward tonight. Now, by which parliamentary device that occurs, it turns out it will likely be a motion to postpone indefinitely. Some individuals signed up to speak on that item, but again, we expect there will be some flexibility. We now know that the original supporters acknowledged that in the present form, that item should not come up tonight before us. And although it was hotly debated in June, I think, it's certainly my hope that those who signed up to speak recognize there's no need to hear debate when everyone does not want this to be taken up for a dispositive vote. So if we can all have some flexibility, hopefully we will get through this. All right, Craig, our next slide, please. All right, at this time, your moderator and moderator pro tem will designate the following 18 items for our consent calendar. And as I said, if they remain, I will ask if there's any objection at the end. If they remain on our consent calendar, this is all you are going to hear on these tonight. So the first, next slide, please. The first three, item number 1. It is a resolution appointing Winston Robinson to be a regular member of the Board of Human Services with a term expiring June 30, 2022. Item 6 is a resolution to accept a grant for $64,700 from the state of Connecticut to support the video production program at Greenwich High School. And item 9 is a resolution appropriating the amount of $160,000 for a project at Nathaniel Witherell. Next slide.
Sorry, Jenny, before I read, can you just get Ryan Oka and Allison Solar up to the panelist level, please? They're 2 district tabulators. Thank you. Item 15 is a resolution for Anne Marie Hines to be appointed a regular member of the Commission on Aging for a term expiring June 30th, 2023. Item 16 is a resolution appointing Ellen Wolfson to be appointed a regular member of the Commission on Aging for a term expiring June 30th, 2023. And item 17 is a resolution appointing Francis Kip Bergweger to be appointed a regular member of the Commission on Aging for a term expiring June 30th, 2023.
Slide, please. Item 18 is a resolution appointing Bernard Armstrong to be a regular member of the Harbor Management Commission for a term expiring March 31, 2023. Item 21 is a resolution appointing Ann Fountain to be a regular member of the Board of Health with a term expiring June 30, 2023. And item 22 is a resolution appointing Lauren O'Keefe to be a regular member of the Board of Health with a term expiring June 30, 2023.
Item 23 is a resolution appointing Sarah Gamble to be appointed a regular member of the Board of Health for a term expiring June 30th, 2023. Item 26 is a resolution appointing Gary Delabate to be appointed a regular member of the Board of Parks and Recreation for a term expiring June 30th, 2023. And item 27 is a resolution appointing Scott Johnson to be a regular member of the Board of Parks and Recreation for a term expiring June 30th, 2020.
Item 28 is a resolution appointing Robert Siska to be a regular member of the Board of Ethics for a term expiring June 30, 2022. Item 30 is a resolution appointing Donna Giaffrey to be an alternate member of the Alarm Appeals Board for a term expiring June 30, 2021. And item 31 is a resolution appointing John Sluzars to be a regular member of the Alarm Appeals Board with a term expiring June 30, 2024.
Item 32 is the appointment of Christopher Carter to be a regular member of the Board of Nathaniel Witherell for a term expiring June 30, 2023. Item 33 is an appointment of Melissa Gibbons to be a regular member of the Board of Nathaniel Witherell for a term expiring June 30th, 2023. And item 34 is an appointment of Dawn Turner as a regular member of the Board of Health for a term expiring June 30th, 2023.
All right, thank you. So that concludes our designation of those 18 items for our consent calendar. Is there any objection to the designation of those items for the consent calendar? Hearing none. Next slide, please. Will the district chairs please mark your voting cards Consent calendar items 1, 6, 9, 15 through 18, 21 to 23, 26 to 28, 30 to 34, and proceed to poll your delegation. We will hopefully conduct that in the 5-minute period, and we will await the expiration of that 5 minutes before proceeding further. We have reached the end of our 5-minute period for voting, so hopefully that is well underway. Absent objection from the district tabulators, we will continue with the meeting. Can we have the next slide, please? All right. In order to combine items for voting purposes, it requires a motion to suspend the rules. Will someone please move to suspend the rules to group our items 19, 20, and 25 into one group of combined items and 24 and 29 into a second group?
I make that motion, Tom.
So moved.
All right, thank you. It has been moved and seconded to combine items 19, 20, and 25 into one group of combined items and 24 and 29 into a second group. The motion to suspend the rules is not debatable and it requires a 2/3 majority to pass. Do we have another slide? Okay, so we will use the raise hand feature, and all those in favor of suspending the rules as described, please raise your hand now. And I'm sure it doesn't require reminding, but I will say that only members may vote. So right now I'm seeing more than 230 hands up, and that's a problem. So if you are not a member, please put your hand down.
144 have their hand raised. 246
Oh,
is how many?
I'm sorry. I was looking at the number of attendees. All right, my mistake. So we have 100, looks like 150. All right, that goes up and down. It's at 150, 151. Will you please lower your hands? Will everyone please lower your hands? All right, next slide, please, Craig. I'll now call for all those against suspending the rules as described. Please raise your hand now. All right, I see 15. And that goes between 14 and 15. Thank you. Please lower your hands. The motion to suspend the rules is carried. That brings us to the first group of combined items. So, 19. Our first selectman, is our first selectman going to present this?
Yes, I believe First Selectman Camillo.
So you need, there we go. Fred Camillo, our first selectman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, RTM members and guests. Item 19, resolved that the following named person nominated by the Board of Selectmen be appointed a regular member of the Harbor Management Commission for a term expiring March 31st, 2023. Cornelia Elizabeth Beth Forbes.
Thank you. Will a member please move the adoption of the resolution?
So moved.
Resolution on item 19 has been moved and seconded. May we hear the reports of the committees that considered this, beginning with our appointments committee? Or Mr. McKnight, would you prefer another committee go first?
Yes, I would, as a matter of fact.
All right, Peter Berg, are you prepared with the Land Use Committee report?
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
So the Land Use Committee interviewed Beth Forbes last Monday night. Ms. Forbes was raised in Florida. She described her longtime love of boating, her community service activities in the Greenwich community, and her professional background. She is involved in a number of boating clubs and sails competitively. She emphasized the skills she would bring to her role on the Harbor Management Commission, including project management, dissecting rules and regulations, and constituent outreach and communication. Resident Ashley Smith spoke in favor of Ms. Forbes' appointment. It was also noted that although the call states that Ms. Forbes was to be appointed as a regular member and Mr. McKee is an alternate member, that Ms. Forbes would be an alternate and Mr. McKee a regular member. And this was confirmed to us by the chair, Michael Van Oss. The Land Use Committee voted 12-0-0 in favor of the appointment of Beth Forbes as an alternate member of the Harbor Management Commission.
Thank you. And our Parks and Recreation Committee report, may we have that, please?
Good evening, Mr. Moderator, members of the RTM. Park and Rec Committee met at 6:30 Tuesday evening to review the nomination of Beth Forbes. We had a wonderful discussion with an enthusiastic candidate for this nomination. Well adapted with her work with the Junior League. She spoke of her willingness to participate in any way possible as a member of our community. We were very appreciative of Ms. Forbes' time, and we felt that she would be an excellent candidate for this role. The vote was 12-0-0.
Thank you. That was Catherine LeBalbo, Chair of Parks and Rec. Bob McKnight, Chair of our Appointments Committee.
Yes, thank you. Beth Forbes is a new nominee to the Harbor Management Commission, designation A2 for a term ending 2023. She impressed us with her knowledge of the Greenwich waters and environmental issues facing the town. Our vote 12-0-0.
Thank you. Discussion on item 19. Item 20 now comes before us. Fred Camillo, our first selectman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Resolved that the following named person nominated by the Board of Selectmen be appointed an alternate member of the Harbor Management Commission for a term expiring March 31st, 2023. Casey McKee.
Thank you. Will a member please move the adoption of the resolution? Resolution on item 20 has been moved and seconded. Peter Berg with the report of our Land Use Committee.
Am I on?
Now you are.
Thank you. So we interviewed Mr. McKee last Tuesday night. We did that jointly with Parks and Rec. I should have said that for Beth Forbes as well. Now, again, we were informed that Mr. McKee is being appointed as a regular member, not as an alternate, as appears in the call. So that may need to be clarified here. Mr. McKee is completing his first term as a Harbor Management Commission member. He shared his background in the marine industry and his work on the Harbor Management Commission's mooring and application review committees and the Harbor Master Search Committee. He described the new mooring application process, which has significantly helped with tracking moorings and applicant paperwork, but noted that they are still identifying abandoned moorings and working to improve aerial imagery to support that work. Mr. McKee also noted that Sean Jordan, the new harbor master, has been familiarizing himself with the local waterways, has access to a boat donated by Parks and Rec to replace a whaler that was costly to maintain. Mr. Van Oss and Mr. McKee described the Harbor Management Commission's efforts in the Weeks barge issue last year and their communications with neighboring harbor masters and commissions. The Land Use Committee vote on Mr. McKee was 12-0-0 in favor of the appointment.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you for pointing out the issue about alternate versus regular. If you look at the slide on the screen, this was a substitute resolution. And I think, I might have, when I was reading a consent calendar item, read the wrong number or something. It is all those consent calendar items were as they appeared in the call. And that governs, not what I might have said, any mistake I might have made. And I'll just confirm with our first selectman, Mr. Camillo, I believe this is a regular member and you are offering a substitute resolution. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Moderator. Yeah, I have it written down here as regular. I know there was some confusion after the fact, but I was told that you have it correct now.
Okay. All right. So
if I misspoke, I apologize.
Thank you. We are in fact talking about a regular membership for Mr. McKee. So thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Berg. Catherine LaBalbo, Chair of our Parks and Recreation Committee.
As Peter said, we met jointly with Land Use. Only to add that the Harbor Management Commission's chair, Mike Van Oss, had joined us also that evening and given this a strong recommendation for the hard work that Mr. McKee has provided in his term in regards to his renomination or his nomination to move to a regular membership. The vote was 12-0-0.
Thank you. And Mr. McKnight with the Appointments Committee report.
Yes, we interviewed Mr. McKee as nominated by the Board of Selectmen for the position of alternate on the Harbor Management Commission. He explained to us he was under the assumption he was going to be regular, and we informed him we could only vote as we were presented the alternate position. With the term expiring 2023. We discussed his freshman term in which he managed the website and helped the search committee for a new harbor master and the mooring review subcommittee. His volunteerism also includes ONS Foundation, the Community and Police Partnership, and the Community Emergency Response Team. Our vote 12-0-0.
All right. And the fact that this is now for a regular membership, that doesn't change the recommendation of the Appointments Committee. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you very much. All right. So that everyone is clear, this is a substitute resolution. If we adopt it, we will be appointing Mr. McKee to be a regular member with the term expiring March 31, 2023. Discussion on substitute resolution item 20. All right. Item 25 now comes before us. Once again, our first selectman, Fred Camillo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Resolved that the following named person nominated by the Board of Selectmen be appointed a regular member of the Board of Parks and Recreation for a term expiring June 30th, 2023, Sue Botson.
Thank you. Will the member please move the adoption of the resolution? Resolution on item 25 has been moved and seconded. Catherine LaBalbo with the Parks and Rec report.
Before she reads it, it's a substitute resolution. The date in red is 2021, not 2023, which was just read.
Okay. And that is on the slide. So this is another substitute resolution changing, I guess, the designation to R2 and also the expiration of the term to 2021. All right. So that is what is now before us. Catherine LaBalbo with the Parks and Rec report.
Thank you. Ms. Botson came before us, spoke at length about her various leadership and volunteer positions within town, that she was excited to join the team on Park and Rec, interested in passive, we expressed the need for us to continue to focus on passive recreation and outdoor spaces, especially at this time when they're so valuable to us all. She is willing to join the team and lend a hand in any way she can, and is thrilled. We felt that she was a very fit appointment for the job based on both her professional career and her personal volunteerism. She received the board support with a vote of 12-0-0.
Thank you. Bob McKnight with the Appointments Committee report.
Yes, we interviewed Sue Dobson as a new nominee to the Board of Parks and Rec. Designation R2 for a term ending 2021. We discussed her career in marketing and fundraising and her passion for passive recreation, an interest our committee has long sought to diversify interests on the board. Our vote 10-0-1.
Thank you. Discussion on item 25. All right, next slide, please. Will the district chairs, district tabulators, please mark your voting cards. This is the group 1 combined calendar items. We will vote separately on group 2, items 19, 20, and 25. And please proceed to poll your delegation.
Yeah.
I do have the result of the vote on the 18 consent calendar items. That vote was 208 in favor, 0 opposed, and 0 abstention. So the consent calendar items have carried. You can start that timer. That brings us to the end of the 5-minute voting period for group 1 combined items. You know, the every song on this playlist has some meaning as put together by the playlist generator. And I'm afraid to ask who the Reaper, that Reaper is. Oh my goodness. All right. So we will have the result of that vote shortly. I have neglected to mention one other thing that you should expect at the meeting. I think many of you might be aware of it. A member from District 8 does intend to bring a non-agenda item before us tonight. That will, as you know, Freedom of Information requirements prevent us from taking up non-agenda items at a regular meeting unless we first vote by a 2/3 vote to do so. So I anticipate that there will be a motion to take up the non-agenda item at the end of the meeting, and we'll deal with that at the appropriate time. Now, you know, I see hands up among various people. So I just want to repeat, our members have the ability to contact their district representative on a panel. We are not, for security reasons, we are not at this stage recognizing raised hands. If contact your district representative on the panel, who will then alert us. And non-members, I'm sorry, we don't have the ability to recognize the raised hand feature. Members may contact their district reps on the panel, who will then let us know. Otherwise, we are going to proceed. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so the second group of combined items now come before us. Mr. Camillo, our first selectman, do you have that item? This is item 24. You're muted, Mr. Camillo.
How about now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator. From now on, I'm going to look straight ahead and not read off of my paper. Resolved that the following named person nominated by the Board of Selectmen be appointed a regular member of the Board of Health for a term expiring June 30th, 2023, Vic Sandu.
Thank you. Will the member please move the adoption of the resolution? Resolution on item 24 has been moved and seconded. May we have the reports on this item? Alexis Vulgaris, Chair of our Health and Human Services Committee.
We voted 11-0-0 to support Mr. Sandhu, but my understanding is that this is going to be postponed. So if Appointments wants to offer their motion to postpone, we would be happy to give our report at the appropriate time.
All right, Mr. McKnight?
Yes, due to a medical emergency, Mr. Sandhu was unable to attend our meeting, but he's offered to come back in October. And would like to offer a motion to postpone to the October meeting.
Thank you. Since this is combined with one other item, we'll take up one motion to postpone both items. So at this stage, Craig, could you go to the next slide, please? All right, once again, Mr. Camillo. Mr. Camillo, can you present item 29 for us? Mr. Camillo? All right, we're having some technical difficulties. I will present it. Item 29 is a resolution appointing Mary Shaw Marks to be an alternate member of the Historic District Commission for a term expiring October 31, 2024. Peter Berg, do you have which committee is moving to postpone this?
Appointments.
All right, Mr. McKnight, why don't you go ahead?
Yes, your Appointments Committee tried 3 times to contact Mrs. Marks. We were unable to. So we're offering a motion to postpone until the October meeting.
All right, and I neglected to ask, but would a member please move the adoption of the resolution? The resolution on item 29 has been moved and seconded. So those two items, 24 and 29, are before us, but because of inability to meet with our committees, the Appointments Committee is moving to postpone both to October. That motion being offered on behalf of one of our committees does not require a second. And next slide, please, Craig. Did we have a raised hand one for this?
We did.
All right, so here we go. All right, so I'm now calling for a raised hand vote on the motion to postpone items 24 and 29 to the October meeting. Those in favor, would you please raise your hand? Again, limited to our members. All right, so I have approximately 150. Again, that goes up and down by 1 or 2. I'm now reading 140, 145. All right, please lower your hands. Would everyone please lower your hands? Craig, next slide, please. So those who are in favor, please lower your hands. Those opposed to the motion to postpone, please raise your hands now. All right, I see 15. So the motion to postpone items 24 and 29 to the October meeting has carried. Thank you very much. You may lower your hands. I do have the result of the vote on the group 1 combined items. That vote was those in favor 211, opposed 0, abstaining 3. So the group 1 combined items have carried. Those were substitute resolutions. Thank you. All right. So that now brings us to our separate items. And you can see the list of those separate items. That is all that remains before us tonight. We will take them in numerical order. So item number 2 now comes before us. Mr. Camillo, are you presenting the Darius Toraby item number 2?
Yes, I am, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Next slide, please, Craig. Thank you.
Resolved that the following named person nominated by the Board of Selectmen be appointed a regular member of the Historic District Commission for a term expiring October 31st, 2023. Darius Torabay.
All right, and I did just notice this was postponed from our June meeting, so it was moved and seconded there. So it is now before us as described by Mr. Camillo. May we have the reports of the committees that considered this?
I'd
Peter
like to go
Berg.
first, Tom. For
What's
appointment.
that?
I'd like to go first because we met him prior to new information.
Got it. Okay, Mr. McKnight with the Appointments Committee report.
Thank you. We met with Mr. Torby in the spring to interview for the R2 term on the Historic District Commission expiring in 2023. We discussed his 40 years of experience as an architect and his experiences on the board thus far. Our vote 9-0-0.
Thank you. Peter Berg with the Land Use Committee report.
Mr. Moderator, Mr. Torby attended our Land Use Committee meeting last Monday night and provided information about his experience on the Historic District Commission, on which he has served since 2011. So if appointed, this will become his fourth term. He is an architect and an engineer and has experience in historic preservation. Mr. Torby noted that he has lived in Greenwich for 30 years and lives in the Strickland Road Historic District. He discussed favorably improvements to the town regulations that incentivize preservation in exchange for increased FAR and other benefits. George Flouty, Mr. Torby's immediate neighbor, attended and spoke, that is attended by Zoom, and spoke against the appointment. Mr. Flouty has an application before the Historic District Commission and believes Mr. Torby has a conflict of interest and should recuse himself from voting on that application. Mr. Torby, in response, noted that while he has not recused himself and did not believe there was a conflict, that he also had not voted against Flouty's application to date. Mr. Flouty stated, and Mr. Torby confirmed, that an offer had been made by Mr. Torby's wife, former HDC member Faith Torby, to purchase the driveway that is shared by the two properties, and that there have been disagreements over other issues relating to the adjacent properties. Mr. Flouty's surveyor, Michael Finkbeiner, also spoke against Mr. Torby's appointment. Mr. Torby was asked by the committee whether he had pursued an opinion from the town's Board of Ethics. He stated he had not. The commission, the Historic Commission sought an opinion regarding recusal from the law department rather than from the Board of Ethics. John Wetmore from the law department provided criteria for conflict of interest. Mr. Torby concluded that he did not have a conflict of interest. A member moved to call the question, which received no objections. The Land Use Committee voted 1 in favor, 6 opposed, 5 abstentions, thereby rejecting this appointment. The no votes came from districts 1, 5, 6, 10, 11, and 12. And they noted concerns about conflict of interest and the need for the candidate to seek an opinion from the Board of Ethics.
All right, and that's the conclusion of your report?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. All right. I will now call for discussion on item 2, and I will call on Peter Berg in the first instance.
Thank you. So I'm moving to postpone this Torby appointment to allow the matter to go to the Board of Ethics. I'm doing so as an individual, not on behalf of the Land Use Committee. I've had a number of phone conversations, including with Steve Bishop, who's the chairman of the Historic District Commission, and with Mr. Torby's attorney, Chip Haslin. So The proposal is to postpone so that this matter can go to the Board of Ethics. And Mr. Haslin has indicated that Mr. Torby will recuse himself from this current application until the Board of Ethics has had an opportunity to render their opinion.
All right. A motion to postpone. So Mr. Berg has moved to postpone item 2 to the October meeting. Is there a second?
I second it.
It has been moved and seconded to postpone item 2 to our October meeting. This motion, we were alerted to this just a little while ago today. So there was no sign-up sheet posted for the motion to postpone. It is a debatable motion. Discussion on the motion to postpone item 2 to October.
Mr.
All
Moderator,
right. Yes.
Brian Rainey, District 9. Point of information for the town attorney. Is this an appropriate matter for the Board of Ethics?
Well, I don't think we need the town attorney to answer that. The Board of Ethics does deal with conflicts of interest. They don't, so they can issue an opinion, an advisory opinion, and the individual can either follow their guidance or not. And if some individual believes a board or commission member has violated the Code of Ethics, they could then file a complaint with the Board of Ethics. So Mr. Berg is talking about a potential conflict of interest, and that would be the appropriate board to issue an advisory opinion, but it is only advisory.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
It's the town attorney. I just wanted to say thank you. I agree with your statement.
Thank you. Further discussion on the Berg motion to postpone. All right, hearing none. Do we have, I think we did put a slide together, Craig, on this. All right, so there's, and we will actually.
We have a raised hand.
A postponement, yes. So do we have the raised hand slide? We are for procedural issues, we may take a non-recorded vote. So a postponement is a procedural question. So at this time, I will ask all those in favor, again, just members, all those in favor of the Berg motion to postpone item 2 to the October meeting, please raise your hand. All right. So I see about 136. 136. All right, we're going to lower all those hands. Okay, next slide, please. All those opposed to the motion to postpone who would like to take this up tonight, please raise your hand. All right, I see 31. So the motion to postpone item 2 to October has carried. Thank you. All right, next slide, please. Next. All right. At this point, this item 3 is the sense of meeting resolution that we took up first in June. And if you recall, Alexis Vulgaris, our moderator pro tem, handled that item. So I now turn the chair over to Alexis Vulgaris, our moderator pro tem.
Very much. I'd now like to recognize Marita Homry of District 10 to offer up her motion to postpone. Jenny or Craig, can you find Ms. Homry so she can be unmuted and be allowed to read her motion and her statement, please?
I can do it.
There.
There you go.
Thank you, Madam Moderator Pro Tem. I would like to move to postpone this item indefinitely.
There a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Homry, the motion has been moved and seconded. Ms. Homry, my understanding is you'd like to offer some remarks about this?
I'll be a very brief explanation of how we're making this motion. The SOMR came before the RTM in June to support swift action by the Board of Ed and BET to grant interim funding for schools. It came after the BET had asked our superintendent to come up with a new annual budget that was $3 million less than the one that had been in the works for 8 months, and which had already been approved by the BET Budget Committee. This cut occurred after the period for public comment had lapsed, so the only forum for the public to express their opinion on the budget was with the RTM. Since the SOMR was proposed, almost every day has brought new expenses as well as new sources of funding, leaving the financial needs of the schools in constant flux. With the uncertainty over whether schools will remain fully open, the Board of Ed still does not know what their expenses will be. Because of this uncertainty, along with the very long agenda for tonight's meeting, we had sought to withdraw the SOMR out of respect for people's time. I appreciate the support and encouragement we received from RTM leadership in this effort. However, District 2 objected to our withdrawing it, not because they want to support the SOMR, but to insist that it be disposed of by a motion to postpone indefinitely rather than withdrawal. As a result, we are using this more time-consuming procedure to achieve, in the moderator's terms, the same thing. We are proposing and supporting a motion to postpone indefinitely. The SOMR arose out of the public outcry in response to having been cut out of the BET's budget process and our desire to give the public the forum that had been denied them. And I am proud that the RTM could fulfill its core purpose to offer widespread public participation in voicing what kind of town we want to live in. Thank you.
Very much.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, who's speaking, please?
It's Mike Bash from Alexis. I would just like to clarify, Ms. Hamry referred to how she characterized the motion made by District 2. The motion made by District 2 was positioned as, in the event the petitioners were unsuccessful in withdrawing their motion, then we would make a motion to postpone indefinitely.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Now we've heard the authors, the architects of this SOMR have decided that they are moving to postpone this item indefinitely. We have 8 people who've signed up to speak on this item. All but one of them are speaking in favor of the motion to postpone indefinitely. So it would be a somewhat redundant and repetitive process. Does anyone who has signed up feel this item still needs, that they would like to speak on this item? Or if not, do you feel comfortable going straight to the vote where we would recommend to postpone indefinitely? I'll give you a moment to let your district tabulator know if you object to that. Otherwise, I would recommend that we move to the vote, but I'll give everyone a moment. And if someone objects, we will listen to the 8 speakers. Do I hear any objections?
Alexis, this is Dan.
Yes, Mr. Ozismir.
Yes, I did sign up to speak in support of postponing indefinitely, and also District 5 unanimously made the same motion.
Yes.
I agree with Tom's sentiment that we should have had this motion to postpone without any additional commentary, in which case I would not have spoken. Marita obviously spoke beyond the idea of postponing indefinitely, and all I would say is I don't agree with the characterization of the SOMR and the discussion there, but I do support postponing indefinitely. Thank you.
So am I to interpret that as you're one of the speakers and that you would feel comfortable moving forward without having the remaining 7 people speak?
I see the rest of my time, Alexis. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that objects, or based on the overwhelming sense that everyone seems to want this postponed indefinitely, that we could just move to?
Alexis, I
Yes.
just heard, this is Brian Mallon, District 9.
Yes.
I just heard from one of my district members that they signed up and they would like to speak.
Okay. Then I'd like to recognize Mr. Seth Bacon from District 9. Mr. Bacon?
Yep, hello, thank you. And I think I inadvertently signed up as against the motion to postpone, but I'm for it. And I just want to make sure, because I will cede my time, but I hope that everyone else does, in the sake of moving past this issue and not conflating the SOMR with the broader issue of the budget cut, which was the heart of the issue, not the SOMR. So I will cede the rest of my time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else?
Brooks Harris would like to speak.
All right, you know what? It seems that people are just going to use this to speak, so I'm going to go down the list. Brooks Harris?
Yes, am I unmuted?
You are.
Okay, I'll just be brief. I found that this SOMR was part of a process which really emotionally inflamed the town around this issue. And I was disappointed by that, because I voted for the budget, yet I feel extremely strongly that education for our kids is one of the most important, if not the most important things we can do. I knew, though, because I had attended BOE meetings and BET meetings, that there was going to be tremendous excess in the school budget. I also knew there would be tremendous number of expenses that we couldn't anticipate that I hoped would come back through interim requests, which I would most likely support, and I indicated that. But I think just withdrawing this, I think it has to be said in the context of withdrawing that the process of flaming the emotions of the town to achieve a political outcome is not constructive when almost everybody, maybe everybody, had the same objective in mind, which is efficiently funding our kids and getting the best education possible. Thank you.
Thank you. I would ask everyone to confine their remarks to the motion at hand and not try and stray too far afield. Ms. Homry, you're on this list. Do you have anything else you'd like to say, or are you satisfied with your opening statement?
I am satisfied with my opening statement, and that this was a response, that we were just offering, we were responding to the public, not inflaming the public.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spilo, you are on the list. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
I'll reiterate Brooks Harris's remarks. I think the rhetoric was excessive.
Okay, I'm not asking about the rhetoric right now. I'm asking about the motion. Do you have anything?
And the
else?
motion should pass.
Thank you. Janet McMahon. She's in District 8, Jenny.
6. Oh, 8. I'm sorry. Yeah. Wrong, Janet.
Thank you, Madam Moderator Pro Tem. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the RTM. On Saturday, I was made aware that District 2 and now apparently District 5 made a motion to postpone the education SOMR indefinitely, rather than allowing the sponsors of the SOMR to withdraw it. Given the circumstances, the nuances between withdrawing the item and postponing it indefinitely are negligible, which leads me to believe that District 2 and 5's intentions were neither very collegial nor productive to town governance. Marita and I, the co-sponsors of the SOMR, had already planned to withdraw it from the call tonight. All 4 committees taking up the SOMR also withdrew it from their agendas. The only net effect of District 2's motion then is to incite more debate, as you're hearing right now, and take up more time on an evening with an already packed agenda. Going forward, I encourage all committees and districts to put forward motions in a thoughtful and efficient manner. At any rate, while I support both the withdrawal and postponement of this SOMR from tonight's call, I would like to reiterate my position that our public schools must be funded appropriately every year and must not rely on interim funding or bus contract rebates. Moreover, our 2% budget guideline is not sustainable for a premier school district in an affluent town with more than adequate financial resources. So without further ado, please, let's move forward, postpone this SOMR indefinitely, and refocus our efforts on supporting a fair and flexible Board of Ed budget for 2021 to 2022. Thank you.
Very much. I understand Paul Olmsted has yielded his time. So the last speaker I have is out of District 11, Brad Radulovalecki.
Brad needs to unmute himself.
Sorry, yes, Brad Radulovac. It was a good attempt. I will withdraw my time. Brooks Harris and Mike Spillo spoke on my behalf.
Madam Moderator, Mike Basham.
Yes, Mr. Basham.
I'd like to reiterate once again, it was our understanding in District 2 that the petitioners had planned to withdraw the motion, or excuse me, withdraw item 3. That then subsequent to that, we understood that there might be some procedural issues associated with withdrawing that, but given their intent to withdraw it, again, our motion to postpone indefinitely was made only to be exercised only in the event they were unsuccessful in withdrawing it. The fact that they took it upon themselves to move to withdraw it and postpone it indefinitely, I applaud that, and I would encourage everyone to vote for it.
Alexis?
Yes.
So this is Wilma Nasinovich, Chair of District 2. I want to say that I object strenuously to Ms. McMahon's characterization and support Mr. Basham in what he said.
You know what, I think we've strayed a little far away at this point. So
Alexis, it's Adam Rothman.
Yes, Mr. Rothman.
Our district is asking for a recorded vote on this.
Yes, of course it will be recorded.
Okay.
So I believe that concludes our speaker. We're now going to take a vote. Craig, the next slide, please. So the motion to postpone item 3 indefinitely. If you want to kill the item, you're going to vote yes on the motion to postpone indefinitely. If you do not want to kill the item, you would vote no on the motion to postpone indefinitely. Will the district tabulators please mark your voting cards, motion to postpone item 3 indefinitely, and proceed to poll your delegation. Thank you. Thank you. Moderator Byrne, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Shows all yours.
All right. So our 5-minute voting period on the motion to postpone item 3 has expired. We will await the tabulation of that vote. Meanwhile, we will continue with the next item. Now, item 5 has been withdrawn. So there was a whole slew of slides. We're going to jump to item 7, which is the next separate item. There we go. All right. Amina Ahmad, Assistant Town Attorney, will present this resolution. And it is a substitute resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, members of the RTM. On behalf of the department and the Board of Human Services, I offer substitute resolution item number 7. Resolved that Article 5, Section 62 of the Charter of the Town of Greenwich is amended as follows to allow for an increase in the number of members on the Board of Human Services from the current 7 members to 9 members. And the remainder of the amendment is as it appears in the substitute resolution.
Thank you. Will a member please move the adoption of the substitute resolution on item 7?
So moved.
The substitute resolution on item 7 has been moved and seconded. Which committee would like to go first?
I'll go first.
All right, Alexis Vulgaris, Chair of our Health and Human Services Committee.
Thank you. Good evening. Joining us last Tuesday was Amina Ahmad, Assistant Town Attorney, Alan Gunsberg, the Chairman of the Board of Human Services, and Demetria Nelson, the Commissioner of the Department of Human Services. As you heard, the Board of Human Services is currently comprised of 7 members, and they would like to expand to 9 members. Current members currently serve on between 3 and 4 subcommittees, and having a larger board would allow the workload to be more evenly distributed. Having a larger board could also make the board more diverse and representative of the community at large. Mr. Gunsberg was asked if there are currently any candidates that have been identified to serve on an expanded board, and he indicated that there were no known candidates waiting to be nominated. Mr. Gunsberg stated at the moment they are currently carrying a vacancy. A question was then raised about ensuring the meetings were able to achieve a quorum if the board was expanded. For example, if the board is expanded to 9 members and the current board only has 6 because they still have a vacancy, the quorum to hold a meeting becomes 5 in attendance, which doesn't leave a lot of room for flexibility if there are absences. Mr. Gunsberg did not foresee that as a realistic problem, though. Our vote on this item was 11-1-0, with District 7 voting no based on the possible quorum issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Kip Bergweger, Chair of our Legislative and Rules Committee.
We met Monday night. We were assisted by Demetria Nelson, Commissioner of the department, Mr. Alan Gunsberg, and Winston Robinson, a member of the board. They also described to us the reasons for the increase. There were several that Alexis mentioned. They also mentioned the need for more community visibility, greater diversity, and increased board presence in the community, because the board is representative of the town's diversity and the color and disability of its residents. They also covered the point that the board is very busy. We got into some detail. There's pleasant in the pandemic. We have food to distribute and diapers. They work with the Jewish Family Services and Neighbor to Neighbor. They support TAG in its deliveries of food every day during the work week to needy persons. Their work to the full extent of their resources, but their resources are being very restrained. Now, some members of our committee first asked, since so many boards and commissions in town have 5 or 7 members, why do we need 9 on this board? They also asked or stated their belief that if the Board of Selectmen see increased personal and characteristic diversity as being a worthy goal, they should nominate candidates accordingly, but retain the existing structure. We noted that the resolution in the form that appeared originally in the call requested approval of the proposal, but did not include the amendment to the charter, and Assistant Town Attorney Amina Ahmad, for that reason, did up the substitute resolution. We did not vote on legal order because we did not yet have the actual resolution, although the wording is in the attachments to this item. Vote on the merits was 9-0, with District 2 absent. Districts 1 and 5 voted no. It was noted that this was a first reading.
All right, thank you. Before I call for any discussion, I want to recognize Alexis Vulgaris.
The vote on the motion to postpone, I'm assuming that's what you want me to read, sir?
Correct.
206 in favor, 3 opposed, 9 abstentions. That motion has carried.
Thank you. Back to item 7. So we now have heard the committee reports. Is there any discussion on item 7? Hearing none. Once again, this is subject to our second read requirement, so we will not take a vote tonight on this. All right, that will return to us in October. The next item to come before us is item number 8. Can we have that slide, please? All right, I understand Mr. Van Oss, who's chair of the Harbor Management Commission, will present this item. Mr. Van Oss.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator.
Is my sound working?
Yes, it is.
Excellent. I just lost my screen here. The item to consider and act upon the following substitute resolution requested by the Harbor Management Commission as it appears in the substitute resolution for item C.
All right. So this deals with a no wake zone out near Great Captain's Island, correct?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Will a member please move the adoption of the substitute resolution on item 8? All right. The substitute resolution has been moved and seconded. We will now hear the reports of the committees. Again, who would like to go first?
I can do that.
All right, Kip Bergweger, Chair of our Legislative and Rules Committee.
We were assisted by Mr. Van Oz and Bill Ingraham from the Harbor Management Commission. The commission seeks to create a slow, no-wake zone in a designated space between Great Captain's Island and the Cormorant Reef. In this space, boats congregate, swimmers recreate, and recreational boaters navigate the area. There are 28 moorings in this area. The Harbor Management Commission is proposing this as a safety measure to be acted on now. The problem is that boaters proceed too fast through the area, creating large and disruptive wakes. The difficulty has been in part getting the state of Connecticut to consider and then act on the proposal. The commission has been working on this for 3 years before the state finally came on board. And the state still has, after we approve it, if we do, has 60 days to object to the town's approval. One member of the commission agreed that the area should have a no-wake restriction, but in his mind, the real problem is that restrictions on wakes generated when passing other boats are already in the ordinance, but are not enforced. He was concerned that if this ordinance is adopted, the other wake restrictions will continue to not be enforced. Legislative rules noted the same problem with this item as item 7, in that the proposal requested approval but did not include the amendment to the town code. So Emmett Ahmad did prepare a substitute resolution. And you can see that on your screen that item C is the new language. The legislative rules propose that that language be broken out into a separate subparagraph C or clause C, and that original clause C be renumbered as clause D, and that is the form you see. Again, we did not vote on legal order, although this version was in the attachments. But we voted on the merits, and the vote was 9-1-1, with District 2 absent. District 1 voted no. District 5 abstained. And this is a first read on this item.
Thank you. Catherine LaBalbo, Chair of our Parks and Recreation Committee.
Thank you. We met on Tuesday evening with Mike Van Oss, Bill Ingraham, and Amina Ahmad, the Assistant Town Attorney, to review the slow no wake zone ordinance. So they discussed the area and showed us the charts, which are found in the explanos, and went through that. Actually, there was intent to enforce this new area, that they had discussions or limited discussions with marine enforcement. They also outlined that this needs to be done in coordination with the state DEP. They thanked Amina for her hard work on the language, and we voted in favor 12-0-0.
Thank you very much. Discussion on item 8. Skip Parker, to be followed by Jill Cobbs.
Mr. Moderator and my fellow RTM members, I speak to you as a member of District 5 and the Harbor Management Commission, who urges you to vote yes to the installation of no-wake cylinder buoys between Cormorant Reef and Great Captain's Island. The Harbor Management Commission has discussed the pros and cons of these cylinders for the past 3 years. It's a little-known fact that pilots are always responsible for their boat's wake. Unfortunately, there's no competency test for pleasure boat ownership. With regard to this stretch of water, the wakes left by thoughtless powerboat operators can literally rock your world while you're moored or anchored off of the beach at Great Captain's Island. It's also a little-known fact that no-wake zones also prevent the unnecessary erosion of shorelines, in this case, the beach at Great Captain's Island. Vote yes to the installation of no-wake cylinder buoys between Cormorant Reef and Great Captain's Island. There is no reason not to. Thank you.
Thank you. Jill Cobbs of District 7 to be followed by Bill Lewis of District 1.
I'm going to pass since it's a first read.
Thank you. Bill Lewis, District 1. You have to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think everybody agrees that the goal of reducing wake around Great Captains is a great idea. It should be sent back to the Harbor Management Commission to rework it so that it reinforces rather than undermines the existing parts of the ordinance. The ordinance now, as it is, says that in the outer harbor, which includes this area we're talking about, vessels shall operate at such reduced speed when passing other vessels as to leave as little wake as possible. In other words, if we enforce that, we wouldn't need this proposed ordinance. And so the fear is that by passing this change, we're basically saying we're comfortable with the non-enforcement of the existing ordinance in the entire rest of the outer harbor, where boaters, people in small boats getting pushed around, are entitled to the protection of the existing ordinance. So that's the concern here, and why I hope it can be reworked, as I say, to reinforce the existing protections that we should be enjoying in the rest of the harbor, including far ends of the two islands. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that exhausts our sign-up list. Again, next slide, please, Craig. Just remind everybody, the second reading rule automatically brings the item back for final disposition at the next meeting, meaning we cannot finally dispose of it until the next meeting at the earliest, absent a 2/3 vote to waive that rule. All right. Our next item, I believe, is item number 10. Is that right? Next slide. All right. And this is a Finance Committee proposal. Mike Basham, Chair of our Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Finance Committee, I'm pleased to present item 10 to the members of the RTM for its first read. As some of you may recall, one of the Governance Committee's many recommendations to the RTM last September was the creation of a special capital committee. This was in response to concerns about the number, size, and scope of proposed capital projects for the town and BOE over the next several years. The RTM referred this proposal to the Finance Committee for disposition the following October. The committee was prepared to dispose of this item this spring, but obviously COVID complications resulted in it being postponed until now. The Finance Committee agrees that greater oversight of capital spending should be a high priority for the RTM. Presentations by the committee's Debt Policy Working Group in April of last year, and its Capital Working Group this past May, had already identified capital spending as one of the most important drivers of the town's financial policy for the foreseeable future. Among the RTM's 11 standing committees, only the Finance Committee has current responsibilities that include oversight of capital expenditures. These include a review of all capital outlays, an annual review of the town's long-range capital plan, and advising the RTM annually on the impact on the tax levy of changes and additions to the capital plan. Until the recent Debt Policy and Capital Working Groups presentations, for various reasons, these responsibilities had not been fulfilled in a consistent manner. In discussions with various BET and RTM members and school officials, there was general agreement that the RTM should enhance its oversight of capital expenditures, that this oversight should consist of periodic status reports for those projects that the RTM had appropriated funding for. We were cautioned that it should not evolve into a focus on micromanaging those projects. By a vote of 11-0-0, item 10 on the call represents the committee's disposition of the item referred to at last October. In addition to clarifying its other responsibilities in some areas and eliminating redundancies in others, these proposed changes require the Finance Committee to consistently fulfill its existing capital oversight responsibilities, expands those responsibilities to include a more proactive involvement in the development of the town's capital plans, and enhances the RTM's oversight of appropriated capital expenditures by requiring periodic reporting on the status of all open capital projects. The committee has determined that the necessary level of financial reporting on open capital projects already exists, and the various town and BOE officials and project managers can be available to provide periodic and comprehensive updates on project status as we request. I want to emphasize that these proposed revisions, by enhancing the Finance Committee's oversight role of capital expenditures, result in meeting the goal of enhancing that of the RTM as well. However, they are not intended to limit or restrict the rights and responsibilities of any of the other RTM standing committees with respect to capital expenditures of departments they have the RTM's responsibility for. Again, tonight represents the first read for this item, so the Finance Committee is prepared to answer any questions about this proposal that RTM members may have between now and our next meeting in October. Thank you.
Thank you. Kip Bergweger with the Legislative and Rules Committee report.
We had Mike Basham to help us on this item, and he has now given you the reasons behind the Finance Committee's changes and adoption of this as it appears in the call. However, Legislative and Rules thought that there were some questions about certain parts of it, and that the language might be better adjusted slightly to better suit the goals. So we made some amendments to the language, and the changes would be, and I've sent a copy of it to the the list of motions, but I will just tell you very quickly what the changes are.
Yep, we have them on there.
Yeah,
so you don't need the.
Can you look at that slide? And is that?
Let me just see. General funds, review and approve. Yes. Okay, that's it. So we moved. What was our vote on this? The vote on this was the vote to make these amendments was 12-0-0 in favor, all present. In legal order, the item passed 12-0-0, and on the merits 12-0-0.
Mr. Rodri, if I could interject, District 2 was not in attendance that night. I happened to be from District 2 as I was presenting. So I did vote and all those unanimous votes for the amendments made by Eleanor.
All right, because I was just going to ask or point out that we can adopt amendments upon unanimous consent. And so, first of all, let me point out that the motion to amend item 10 as shown on the slide there, adding making two additions and deleting what's crossed out, that comes from one of our standing committees and does not require a second. We can adopt motions to amend upon unanimous consent. So I will now ask, is there any objection to adopting the changes proposed by our Legislative and Rules Committee? All right, hearing none and hearing the chair of the Finance Committee say that he had no objection, those changes may be adopted upon unanimous consent. All right, so now we have amended item 10. as was pointed out, it is a second read item, so we're not going to take a final vote, but we can have discussion. We do have speakers who have signed up. So I will recognize Brooks Harris to be followed by Nancy Cooper. Oh, you know what? Hang on 1 minute, please. I'm sorry. I'm now looking at something that suggests that someone who is an attendee, wait a minute, Mr. Spilo, you're on the panel, are you not?
Yes, I am.
It says here that you might have signed up to speak against the legislative and rules motion to amend. Is that right?
No, that would be a mistake.
All right.
In any event, I don't have further comments at this time.
Thank you. All right, so so we now have amended it upon unanimous consent. And I am opening it up to discussion and recognizing Brooks Harris to be followed by Nancy Cooper.
Thanks. Am I unmuted?
You're good. We hear you.
Okay, great. This item really clarifies and updates the role of the RTM Finance Committee, and it seeks to be inclusive. So we definitely want as much input as possible from the body of the RTM, and I think it speaks for itself. So I will conclude with that.
Thank you, Nancy Cooper, to be followed by Brad Radolovaki.
Sure, it's Nancy Cooper, District 5. I think we've talked a long time about improving capital, and the clarity and consistency of governance that this suggests from Mike's comments are ones I'm in very much support.
Thank you. And how did I do, Mr. Radolovaki?
Oh, that was excellent. But I will save everyone some time and cede my time. I think Brooks made my point.
All right, thank you. So that exhausts our list of speakers. And again, this is a second read item, so it will come back to us in October. All right, our next item. Can we go to the next slide, please? All right, item 13 now comes before us. And who is presenting this? This is the nuisance ordinance. Mr. Camillo, is that you, or is that the law department? What?
I'm sorry.
Who's presenting the nuisance ordinance?
I thought it was Mr. Camillo, but perhaps I'm mistaken.
All right, Mr. Camillo, are you there? Anyone from the law department?
Yeah, Vin Marino's a town attorney.
All right, Vin Marino, our town attorney.
Yes, I wanted to. I have not. I did not speak, but maybe if Mr. Bergweger can refresh my memory on this. I thought that there were proposed amendments that were being sought on this proposal. Should it be?
No, but our process is someone just presents the item as it appears on the call. Then we get our committee reports and we'll take up any motions addressed to it. So I'm just looking for someone to present the item as it appears on the call.
Lauren Raven.
I'm on. Tom.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, is Fred Camillo there?
Yes, sorry, I lost my microphone again. I'm back on.
All right, you're all set.
Thank you, sir. Resolved that section 6C-2H of chapter 6C nuisances of the code of the town of Greenwich is as follows. The item is as it appears on the call.
All right, thank you. We'll now hear the committee reports, beginning with Peter Berg, Chair of our Land Use Committee. All right, I'm sorry. I neglected to have it moved and seconded. Will member please move the adoption of item 13? The resolution on item 13 has been moved and seconded. Mr. Berg, with the report of our Land Use Committee.
Yes, good evening again. So the Land Use Committee met jointly with Legislative and Rules last Monday night. First Selectman Fred Camillo and Town Attorney Vin Marino joined us to present this item. The first selectman explained that the town's existing nuisance ordinance does not address neglected structures, and that the proposed amendments to the definition of nuisance will allow the town to follow the citation and enforcement process in the existing ordinance to address these properties, which can result in health and safety issues and neighboring property owners seeking tax abatements. Mr. Camillo emphasized that the intention was to ensure that the process was compassionate toward property owners. Committee members raised concerns that some circumstances may require more time to resolve than is permitted in the proposed ordinance. A longer time period or exceptions were suggested. In response to questions regarding the responsibility for enforcement, Town Planner Katie DeLuca explained that nuisance violations often require inspection or input from multiple town departments, and that the town administrator is coordinating a task force of stakeholder department representatives to meet monthly to address the list of nuisance properties. She noted that while the zoning enforcement officers who report to planning and zoning also act as nuisance abatement officers reporting to the Office of First Selectman, that these zoning enforcement officers need this coordinated approach, and suggested that language be added to that effect. The Land Use Committee voted 9 in favor, 3 opposed to approve the amendments as they appear in the call. Districts 1, 2, and 5 voted no because they felt that revisions were needed relative to the amount of time allotted for remediation and exceptions for issues that might extend the amount of time needed for remediation, such as the insurance adjustment process. So once again, our vote on this item was 9 in favor, 3 opposed.
Thank you. Kip Bergweger with the report of legislative and rules.
As Mr. Berg mentioned, we started in a joint meeting with land use. Mr. Camillo emphasized that making these changes in the ordinance is important, needs to be done quickly because we have town residents who are being impacted by blight in their neighborhood. There have been complaints about buildings and structures that are blighted in several districts, including districts 4, 11, 12, and 9. This needs to be adopted because taxpayers are asking for it. Some are so affected that they have pursued tax abatements, and tax abatements affect other taxpayers in the pocketbook ultimately. Mr. Camillo also explained that no opposition had been expressed to him, and there was actually interest in expanding the scope of the nuisance ordinance to exclude, for example, RVs. Katie DeLuca, as Mr. Berg explained, has the town zoning officers identify nuisances now, but they are then reported to the joint effort that Ben Brannion, the town administrator, is working on. However, none of that is in the ordinance itself. There's only an appointment of a nuisance abatement officer nominated by the first selectman, and there's no reference to any kind of joint committee or any sort of a task force, any of that kind of thing. So a number of members of the committee were concerned that an ordinance that is designed and has been in effect for years to deal with shrubbery that's a nuisance and junk in somebody's front yard and old cars that's a nuisance is now being to be applied to structures, buildings, people's homes, and other things that are very different from shrubbery and nuisance. For instance, a reason for a property being in a condition all boarded up might be because a FEMA insurance claim is taking a long time to resolve. Other reasons were cited by committee members include mental illness, title disputes, legal partition, abandonment, or life estates, all of which can be complications which are not on the face of the blighted property and are not even mentioned in the current ordinance and not mentioned in the proposal. So then legislative rules went to its separate meeting, and we thought that the item, and we incorrectly talked about postponing it so that it could go back to the town and have more work done on it. But we know that now that postponement is not an appropriate remedy. But one of the other tests of blight was substantial depreciation, and nobody knew for sure what that meant, except maybe somebody applying for a tax abatement. So we had voted to postpone, but we can't do that. So we don't have anything more to report except these really strong concerns about the way the ordinance would read if we didn't do anything other than adopt the current language.
All right. And as you note, this cannot be acted on finally tonight, so perhaps in the interim, some work might be done. All right, our next report is our Health and Human Services Committee and its chair, Alexis Vulgaris.
Thank you very much. We took up this item last Tuesday with First Selectman Camillo as our guest, as well as Caroline Baisley, the director of the Department of Health. Our committee was particularly interested in the health implications related to this ordinance. For example, are there many properties in town where there is standing water, which could be a breeding ground for mosquito-borne illnesses such as West Nile or Eastern equine encephalitis? Or are there many properties where animals such as raccoons, which often carry rabies, are infesting a home, property, or neighborhood? And what happens in the case of hoarding? Ms. Baisley explained the ordinance before us this evening was originally designed many years ago, but that the current language in the ordinance did not effectively address the issue of blighted properties, particularly those that remain in the state for many years. Ms. Baisley explained that the First Selectman convened a working group comprised of the 6 town departments, Office of the First Selectman, Fire, Police, Health, Law, and Planning and Zoning, which speaks to the coordination on the part of the town to address resident concerns about the blighted properties. Ms. Baisley explained that in the existing ordinance, if the Board of Health deems a property a health hazard, for example, a missing window or some doors, and animals and vermin are running wild and able to get into the property, the department currently only has the authority to ask the owners to board up the missing windows or doors. And while that might solve the short-term vermin rodent problem, it won't solve the long-term blight problem. Ms. Baisley indicated that when the task force was incorporating new language in the ordinance, that the department was looking to include those areas that were missing, and the proposed updated language gives the town a greater ability to address the blighted properties. She gave examples of homes that look like they were falling down and that those that have experienced severe water damage. Ms. Baisley stated that the current proposal represents a well-balanced approach between declaring property a nuisance and balancing the rights of a property owner. A member of the committee then asked Ms. Baisley approximately how many properties her department is aware of that are in this blighted state. And she believes that they are aware of approximately between 10 and 12 in the town. First Selectman Camillo was asked what would happen if a homeowner is elderly or on a fixed income and cannot afford to replace or install a new roof. The First Selectman stated that the town wants to work with the homeowner to become compliant, and this is not about punishing homeowners who might be experiencing financial difficulty. He also stressed that it's important to protect the integrity of neighborhoods by remediating these blighted properties. Our vote on this item was 12-0-0. Thank you.
Thank you. And Richard Newman, Chair of our Town Services Committee.
Good evening. Town Services met last Tuesday. We had First Selectman Camillo answer our questions. Most of what we asked has been covered already. We did have some concerns about the neighbor possibly using this in a dispute maliciously. It was explained that the committee format of review and the enforcement procedures should allay our fears of that, and it should eliminate that. We were aware that this was a first read, and also that L&R had discussed postponing it, at least to rewrite it. Our vote was 11-0-1. District 9 abstained. They strongly support the amendment, but they had similar concerns of legislative rules. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion on item 13. Skip Parker, to be followed by Bob McKnight.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Again, it's Skip Parker from District 5. My adult daughter's best friend lives in Byram. They're both 23 now, but until last year, they both grew up referring to haunted houses, two of which they passed often on Mead Avenue. These properties lay fallow for years, not months. And out of respect for their neighborhoods and property values, abandoned or neglected properties, as defined by the amendments in the ordinance, shouldn't exist in a town like Greenwich. No property owner should be exempt from the terms of this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob McKnight.
Yes, thank you, Tom. I think
To be
I'll,
followed by, hang on, to be followed by Lucy Von Brockel. Go ahead, Bob.
I think I'll hold my comments to the second read in October.
All righty. Lucy Von Brockel.
Hi there. Sorry, having a little trouble unmuting myself. Thank you, Mr. Moderator and fellow members. I want to ask for your support for the proposed amendments when we come to a vote on this next month. Of the 23 towns in Fairfield County, 18 have blight ordinances that define what constitutes a nuisance or blight and lays out a process for enforcement and remediation. It is a common and pragmatic solution to an issue that at the municipal level can have a negative impact on the town's grand list and tax revenue and inhibit development and growth on the neighborhood level, and can have a significant effect on property values, crime, health, and safety and quality of life. Without an ordinance to address this issue, the only way for neighbors and the town to seek relief is through the court system, which can be costly and a drain on the town's legal resources. I think a lot of you have heard about the property on Mead Avenue that our district dealt with. I think it's important to understand that, you know, we got what it took to get that to happen without an ordinance. We had this property was a problem for almost 50, 60 years. And when it became abandoned and started to cave in on itself and there were pest problems, we kind of reached a tipping point, and a group of us got together and had circulated a petition, notified the press, lobbied town officials, and the pressure kind of forced some progress on dealing with that property. But it was so much time and effort on everybody's part, especially the town's part. We can't have that. We need something in place to address these properties. I understand some of the concerns about the language of the ordinance, but this, is actually fairly simple change that would have a significant impact on the town's ability to function and help neighbors that have been struggling with these properties for a long time. I have my own list of properties that stands at about 20. It's not a small problem. We don't see it a lot, but it's there, and it's not just in Byram, it's all over town. It's spec houses in backcountry that are abandoned. It's everywhere. So please, I hope that when this comes back to us that you will support this. I think it's a good thing for the town. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That exhausts our speaker list on item 13. And this being a second read item, will come back in October. That is the earliest that we could take a final vote. All right, Craig, I think we're going to skip a couple of slides. We're going to item 14. All right, Patricia Sesto, who is Director of Environmental Affairs for the town, will present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Resolved that the representative town meeting of the town of Greenwich hereby approves the acquisition by the town of a conservation easement over 72.271 acres of land located at 836 Lake Avenue, Greenwich, Connecticut, for the sum of $1 million. Be it further resolved that the first selectman of the town of Greenwich be hereby authorized to enter into and execute agreements on behalf of the town with Aquarian Water Company and the Greenwich Land Trust to acquire said same conservation easement.
All right. We did not have a substitute on this. Is that right?
I believe that perhaps LNR had some thoughts, but I don't know where they stand.
All right. Okay. So
Yes,
it's as
yes, we had a substitute.
What's that?
We did propose an amendment to the resolution.
We
All
have
right,
that on there, Kip. It's a question. We also got an email about adding a additional.
So Ms. Vulgaris, are
We
we
have a
dealing?
slide. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm just asking, were we expecting a substitute, or are we dealing with what appears on the call?
So
Do you know?
the next slide is reflective of the email that we received indicating that there was going to be a substitute resolution. The first paragraph incorporates the proposed amendments that LNR is going to offer, but the second, be it also further resolved clause was sent to us as brand new language. LNR is not taking that up. We were informed that was going to be a substitute.
All right. So that was my recollection. Did that come from Ms. Sesto or the law department?
Law department.
All right. Amina, was that from you?
Mr. Wetmore.
But I'm talking about who sent, did Ms. Sesto, are you the one who sent the email with this?
Yes.
And so are you choosing to present the substitute in place of what's on our call?
Yes, if legislative and rules is submitting their language, then yes, this substitute would be necessary to ensure the first selectman has the authority to sign documents that were excluded by legislative and rules modifications.
So what do you want to put before us? What is on the call or this substitute resolution to start with? We can amend things as we go, but what do you want us to use as our starting point?
The resolution that I wrote, or that I read, excuse me.
All right, and that is what appears on the call. So could you
That's
just
correct.
go back, Craig, could you go? All right, so that is the item before us. All right, will a member please move the adoption of that resolution?
So moved.
The resolution, as it appears on the call of item 14, has been moved and seconded. We will now hear the committee reports. Mr. Bergweger, why don't we start with you?
We considered this at a joint meeting with land use. We had Sesto's explaining it for us. There are 72 acres of land, 72 out of 80 acres of land owned by Aquarian is subject to regulatory authorization and would be included to in the conservation of open space to benefit the town. Aquarian will retain 8 acres, which would be 2 lots. The 72 acres would have a conservation easement in favor of the town, which must be approved by the RTM. The initiative by Aquarium is made possible by a reference to the statute that's in the call. This land is not part of the reservoir capacity. It is class 3 land outside the watershed, according to our town attorney and Mrs. Sesto. There are species of animals at risk on this land and habitats that will be protected by the initiative. The land sheds water towards the Byron River. The Greenwich Land Trust will have, under this arrangement, will have title to the land. the town will have an easement and will not have maintenance responsibility. The town will have more responsibility for the property well, if we took an interest as an ownership interest in the land, then we would have maintenance responsibility. As it's proposed, the public will have access. The Greenwich Land Trust will prepare a management plan for the property, and the town will have approval of that. Existing trails could be reconfigured and other trails cut, and the town has a approval of those changes. The town is paying $1 million, and the land trust is paying $1 million to acquire the land and the conservation easement. The town may acquire another easement from Aquarian that would connect this parcel to the Babcock. Some members of our committee were not happy with the determination of the price. They were not satisfied that we were getting enough for $1 million. Others wanted title to be in the town because we are paying $1 million for it. It was pointed out by Ms. Sesto that the money is in the capital budget from the last year's budget cycle. It was asked whether this would have a reduction in taxes, and it was explained that the assessor assesses land like this at $30,000 per acre. So $30 million would be coming off the tax rolls, but approximately $3 million would be coming off the tax rolls, but approximately $3 million would be coming back on by virtue of the 2 developable lots that Aquarian will retain. So they will be taxed at about that same amount. The restrictions in the conservation easement will be permanent. If the land trust fails or disappears, the property will revert to the town. The money is there. Property has municipal improvement status. The last step in this process is RTM approval. One of our other committee members wanted to be sure that we had true parking, access, and verification that the price was in the best interest of the town. We then went to our separate meeting, and there, legislative and rules noted that the easement, as written, the item says that we're entering into an agreements with the town, with Aquarian. However, the only agreement in the attachments is with the Greenwich Land Trust. And we took a look at the language and put in the words that the town is authorized to enter into a conservation easement with the Greenwich Land Trust. And then we wanted to be sure that the town was going to do something that was acceptable to the RTM. If we just authorized them to enter into some agreement, the town could enter into anything. So we added that the easement must be substantially in the form presented to the RTM at its September meeting. With these changes, the vote on legal order was 11-0-0 with District 2 absent. Then on the merits, the vote was 8-3-0 with Districts 1, 5, and 11 voting no. The districts expressed concerns such as including that the town should own the property or have an ownership interest. We needed more specifics on how the property was to be used, and there was concern about the dollar amounts in the transaction.
All right, Mr. Bergweger, I have some questions for you if you can help us out here, because I'm trying to justify what I see as the substitute resolution. So as I understand things, and Ms. Sesto, please help us out here as well. As I understand, legislative and rules essentially took out any authorization for the town to enter into an agreement with the Aquarian Water Company. That's their proposed amendment. Now, we haven't adopted that yet. You then sent to us today, I believe, a substitute resolution that adds a paragraph that so you're assuming that that change would be adopted, but apparently there is a concern that the town also needs authorization to enter into an agreement with the Aquarian Water Company. And so you essentially put back in your second paragraph of the substitute what land use took out. Am I reading this correctly?
Yes, you are. So we have no issues with the inclusion of the grant of the conservation easement. Prior to executing the easement with the Greenwich Land Trust, we need to execute a contract of, and Mr. Marino perhaps can chime in better on the legal terminology, but first we have to enter into a contract with Aquarian and Land Trust prior to the closing that says this is the agreement. We're paying $1 million. Land Trust is paying $1 million for Greenwich Land Trust acquisition of the land, and then simultaneously Land Trust will be entering into an easement, granting an easement to the town. So there is a contract where the three parties need to sign in addition to the easement.
All right, Mr. Bergweger, were you aware of that, or was your committee aware of that?
This is the first that we've heard of it, and that's one of the reasons why we put in language that we were voting only on an agreement that had been presented to the RTM.
All right, and Mr. Marino or anyone from the law department, can you comment on Ms. Sesto's account?
Then you're muted.
Mr. Marino, we can't hear you if you're talking. I'm not sure. Is it just me? I can't hear anything. Can anyone else?
No.
What?
No.
Mr. Marino, you're unmuted.
You may have the wrong microphone selected.
All right, it's showing that you're muted now. You're unmuted now. Can we hear you?
No.
Anyone from the law department help us out on this?
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. This is Amina Ahmad. I'm afraid I wouldn't be of much help. I am not very familiar with the terms of the agreement.
Thank
Can you
you.
hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
These things until it works. Okay. I've reviewed email sent by Attorney Wetmore on this matter, and Ms. Sesto has articulated this well. The language that was removed would not, we would still be lacking what authority we needed.
All right, you're fading in and out. I'm not sure where the problem is. I hope it's not my Wi-Fi, but
No, it's not.
Maybe it's then it's on my end. I will speak as loudly as I can. The issue as captured by Ms. Sesto was accurate. Language was added back in to provide the complete authorization that is needed to finalize the transaction.
all right. So let me just ask this. We haven't taken any language out from what is in the call resolution. So are you essentially saying we should not do that? And then, I mean, I don't see the reason why we would take all these votes to take language out and then vote again to put it back in.
That's why I believe what should have been presented is the substitute resolution that I believe was forwarded. That's the operative resolution.
Mr. Bergweger, do you have any comments on this? Was there some other consideration in your amendment other than the authorization for the Aquarian agreement?
Are you asking me?
I am, yeah.
Well, we were told that the town was going to enter into a conservation and easement agreement with the land trust. There was no mention that I can recall that the town would be entering into any kind of contract with Aquarian. They did say that we were paying $1 million, but there wasn't a reference to a contract other than the word agreements in the resolution. And we thought, well, that must be a mistake because the agreement with Aquarian was not mentioned. There was not a copy of it in the attachments. So we just assumed that the town was entering into the conservation easement agreement. And
All right.
also, you know, I mean, we did not want to authorize the town to enter into just any easements any agreements that we hadn't at least had a chance to look at.
And that's why we pay you the big bucks, Mr. Bergweger. So thank you for that. So I just want to make sure everybody is aware, this is not an item subject to a second read. So it can be finalized tonight. And Mr. Bergweger, do you have any suggestion as to how we can satisfy your committee's concerns and what we've heard about authorization for the Aquarian with, you know, an agreement with the Aquarian?
You may not like this idea, but I would postpone it so in order to have the town present us with a copy of the agreement with Aquarian so that we can look at it.
All right, so let's consider that. Is there any urgency to this being finalized tonight?
Yes, there is.
And what?
Aquarian has specific requirements or demands on their side. We have a closing date set for the 29th or 30th of September. They have been working diligently to get through the wetlands permit, subdivision permits, municipal improvement. We have all been working diligently to get to the closing date of the 29th or the 30th. It would be a very uncomfortable position for the town to be in not to meet that closing date. If the substitute language is acceptable,
uncomfortable,
I could not say that the deal would go away, but there are business issues on Aquarian's side that have to do with closing by the end of this month.
All right.
They've made it abundantly clear.
Mr. Bergweger, your main concern and that of your committee is that you don't want to authorize the town to enter into unknown agreements that we have not seen and do not know what they are about. Is that fair?
Yes. I mean, this also involves the payment of $1 million. You know, there are some agreements that we wouldn't care about probably, but this was one of them and frankly, since it never occurred to us that there was a separate agreement to look at, that we make that change. If it came down to the necessary to say, well, if we get the assurances from Ms. Sesto and from the town attorney that the only thing that's being done here is an signing agreement saying we're going to pay you $1 million, that might be something that we can live with, but we don't know that at this point, we don't know that that's the case.
Yes, and Mr. Marino can chime in.
I would say, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The agreement with Aquarion that is going to be signed is going to be relate specifically to the acquisition of the conservation easement. So there's not a financial component part to the agreement. According to the email from Attorney Wetmore, it is specific to the acquisition of the conservation easement. So if that, and I have not seen the contract that is supposed to be signed. However, if it adds any comfort, its terms are limited to the conservation easement, which you have.
So can you suggest any language that would give us comfort in writing as to what we would be authorizing tonight?
In the resolution, the final paragraph, be it also further resolved that the first selectman of the town of Greenwich be hereby authorized to enter into and execute an agreement on behalf of the town with the Clarion Water Company concerning acquisition of the same conservation easement. So it's
I believe that's on the next slide. That language that Mr. Marino is referencing.
Yeah, that is the next slide. Mr. Bergweger.
Resolution that is.
Craig, could you put, there we go. Mr. Bergweger, any thoughts on that? Do you think that satisfies your committee? And I know that's a tough question for you to answer, but.
This is an agreement with the Clarion, but it doesn't include the land trust.
Are you looking at the screen right now?
Yes, I am. It says enter into and exercise an agreement on behalf of the town with the Clarion Water Company concerning acquisition of said same conservation easement.
How about the agreement with Aquarian Water Company and the Greenwich Land Trust concerning acquisition?
Tom, this is Barbara Hinman. Glenn Canner would like to speak from District 12.
Thank you. All right, let's bring Glenn in, please.
Glenn, you can unmute yourself. Glenn?
Glenn. Can you unmute yourself, Glenn? Jenny, is he enabled to unmute?
Yep. Glenn, yeah, just the little microphone, just click on it on your screen, on the left of your screen.
Glenn, we can't hear anything. It looks like you're not unmuting yourself. The wonders of Zoom land.
Yeah, who is he communicating with? Maybe he can get a message to them.
Barbara Hinman, his district representative. Glenn's a lawyer and is on the Legislative and Rules Committee, so I would like.
Oh, there we go. Oh, no, he's gone. He might be trying to rejoin. He's gone now.
All right, listen, let's just hold where we are. Let's finish with the committee reports. This is item 14. Finance took this up. Mr. Basham, do you have that report?
Yes, sir, I do, Mr. Moderator. The committee took this up. Ms. Sesto presented it to us. We voted 11-0-0 with District 6 absent to approve it. We did make mention of the fact that the tax implications of this are something that we would like to see in the future in terms of financial analysis.
All right, and Peter Berg with the Land Use Committee report.
Am I on?
Yes, you are.
So the Land Use Committee met jointly with Legislative and Rules, and I don't have anything to add to Mr. Bergweger's report, except that we did hear that this property will be open to the public, which is not true of many land trust properties. There will be the land trust will have a management plan for the property, and the town will have oversight over that management plan. So when the land trust then met separately, we took a vote 12-0-0 in favor of the acquisition of the conservation easement.
All right, thank you. Can we make one final attempt with Glenn Canner?
He's not in the meeting right now.
Okay, all right.
I'm trying to get the document on my screen. I believe in the July Board of Selectmen meeting, there was a form contract.
Mr. Marino, I can't hear you. You cut in and out. Is anyone else able to hear Mr. Marino?
Glenn is back in the meeting, by the way.
All right, can we try and bring him up? Ms. Marino, I will come back to you. If Glenn Canner, Glenn, can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, did you hear any of my, anyway, essentially what I was saying was that when we looked at this item, we concluded that the payment of $1 million was covered by the first resolve, the first paragraph, and that the only document that would have to be executed would be the easement. So, you know, it's not for me alone to say, but if all the town is doing is basically entering into an agreement that the $1 million would be paid, that shouldn't necessarily be a prohibition to going forward. But I guess if it was any more detailed, legislative and rules might want to look at it.
Am I hearing you say that you are reconsidering the legislative and rules motion to amend?
The motion to amend really, we focused on the fact that the second paragraph in the call just used the word agreements, and we substituted that to be the specific easement that had been set forth in the explanos. We thought that the resolved authorized.
No, we understand all that, but apparently there is more than that one, what you call it, the grant of conservation easement. And they're asking tonight, Ms. Sesto and apparently the town attorney are asking us for authorization to enter into other agreements.
Mr. Moderator, why don't we ask Mr. Marino to shut off his video so we can hear him? Less bandwidth.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The authorization is to sign what would be a contract of sale. So a contract of sale between Aquarion Water Company, the town of Greenwich, and the Greenwich Land Trust for the acquisition of 72.271 acres of unimproved Class 3 land located on Lake Avenue in the town of Greenwich. And the proposed contract of sale was presented to the Board of Selectmen at their meeting on July 22nd of this year. I look at this document, it's a more or less a standard form purchase and sale agreement that memorializes the conveyance of the land from Aquarion to its intended title holder, and sets forth the terms which includes the contribution of $1 million from the town for that purpose. It contains certain representation with respect to the land from the Aquarion, and sets forth other terms that we would find standard in a purchase and sale agreement, including the transfer of title, reps and warranties, and closing dates, and what happens in the event of default.
This is Mr. Moderator. Just let me note that the substitute resolution has omitted the first resolved that is in the original one.
Yeah, I guess those are just added to the first resolved. I think that's the intent.
That is the intent.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Let me see.
I think with my video off, they can hear me.
You were going in and out. Let me see if they can.
There's another
I'm
option.
going to try to call in.
You can call it. That would, you should.
Mr. Moderator.
Who's that? Mr. Camillo?
Yes, it
You're-
was.
You're muted, Mr. Camillo.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Moderator, I just called Vin and I was going to have him speak here, but he's trying to call in now. So he was coming in clear on my phone. So let me try him again.
All right, while we're trying to make that connection, Mr. Bergweger, if there were language incorporating what Mr. Marino just said into, if we look at what's on the call and had some further identifying information, authorizing the first selectman to enter into and execute, and then just define that a little more specifically, like an agreement of sale presented to the Board of Selectmen on such and such a date. Does that help, do you think?
I think it does.
And Mr. Moderator, he's on the phone now.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, I believe what you just stated, again, captures what we're talking about. The extra document that seems to have created the confusion is that purchase and sale agreement that memorializes the terms of the transaction. We just want to ensure that the first selectman has all of the authority necessary to execute all documents related to the conveyance of this property from Aquarion to its intended title holder, which is the land trust.
All right, so I know Ms. Oberlander, a select person, would like to weigh in on this, but before I go to her, can we suggest some language here? If we were to adopt what we see before us for substitute resolution as the second and third paragraphs, that's
If language can be included, that it be further resolved that the first selectman of the town of Greenwich is hereby authorized to enter into and sign all documents related to the purchase of the property from Aquarion. That should cover it, because there may be some documents that relate to this transaction that are not before us tonight, whether it be
all right. We seem to be going backwards. I thought we were making progress. Now we're going back. So I'm going to step out. We're going to just proceed now and take up motions to amend what is before us. But before we do, Jill Oberlander, who is a select person, can we bring her up, please?
Hi, Tom. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
I was just, well, Vin wasn't able to, when you weren't able to hear him, I just had wanted to point out that the form of the contract of sale that was presented to the Board of Selectmen is included in the agenda documents on the town website. It's the July 22nd agenda. If anyone is at home and wants to pull it up and scan it, I know that the Legislative and Rules Committee members are great lawyers and are able to scan quickly to take a look at it if they're not comfortable. And otherwise, you might want to just add language that says substantially in the form of the contract of sale as presented to the Board of Selectmen.
All right, so that is one possibility. So you're saying there are documents on the website that would provide sufficient identifying information to perhaps give us some comfort.
Yeah, to answer some of the questions as raised by the Legislative and Rules Committee, I think Mr. Bergweger was commenting that they were uncomfortable, as I understand it, signing off on something that they hadn't seen. But
the problem is in our resolution, if we don't identify what agreements we're authorizing, then it's just a blank check. So
yeah, so you could say substantially in the form presented to the representative town meeting at September 2020 meeting, and the materials substantially in the form
yes, all right,
presented to the Board of Selectmen at the July 22nd meeting.
All right, so I thought that's where we were going. May I suggest this? Is someone on Legislative and Rules, or perhaps our in our law department able to work on that. If we were to table this item and go on to the other agenda items, we're getting near the end. And then hopefully that would give you time and we wouldn't have to sit and wait and we could make some progress. Is anyone willing to try and get language that would satisfy the concern that we hear expressed by our Legislative and Rules Committee while we go on to other items and then come back?
I'm happy to, Ms. Moderator, Patricia says.
No,
happy
no,
to
I'm
do that.
asking our members. Is there anyone on the RTM?
Well, I can take a crack at it.
All right. Do you need any other information before we leave you?
It's Barbara Hinman. Glenn says he'll work on it.
All right. So if Glenn and Kip can coordinate, would someone like to make a motion to table item? Now, this is motion table, I will tell you, in other organizations is probably the most misused parliamentary device around. This would be a proper use. It's not a postponement. It's putting it aside to take up other business and then coming back to it. The problem is if we table it, it could be taken up at the next meeting without being on the agenda. That's why it's dangerous. You know, it's a dangerous device, but the intent would be to come back, take it tonight, and obviously vote on it tonight.
So
I will
moved, Tom.
I'm sorry?
Second.
So moved. I move to table the item.
Second.
All right. It has been moved and seconded to table item 14. Any discussion on the motion to table? All right. Is there any objection to the motion to table? And I will tell you, it is my intention to come back to item 14 when we finish the other agenda items. Is there any objection? Then we will adopt that upon unanimous consent. Thank you. All right. Item 37 here comes before us. So we're going to go to item 37. All right. And we have the pleasure tonight of meeting the new Alcava, Emmett Hibson. Mr. Hibson, are you around? And I believe you have a slightly different title, and maybe you could introduce yourself to us.
Mr. Moderator, I am around. Can you hear me?
Who's speaking?
Emmett Hibson.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Moderator, members of the RTM, thank you for this evening. My name is Emmett Hibson. I am the collective bargaining specialist for the town of Greenwich now. So I'm replacing Al, a different title. I have a legal background and a finance background. I have about 20 years of doing collective bargaining in the state of Connecticut. Started from the labor side for a couple of years, and then I've been in management side since about 2004. I've worked in New Haven, Stamford, Norwalk, and Fairfield. So I have a lot of Fairfield County experience and a lot of management experience for the last 16 years.
Terrific. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, substitute resolution item 37, resolved that the representative town meeting, in exercising its authority pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 474B, hereby rejects the funds necessary to implement the terms of the town UPSU collective bargaining agreement covering the periods fiscal year 1920, fiscal year 2021, said funds having previously been appropriated and adopted in the fiscal year 1920 and 2021 budget. In addition, the representative town meeting rejects the funds necessary to implement the terms the town UPSU collective bargaining agreement covering the period fiscal year 21-22 and fiscal year 22-23, subject to the budgetary process as prescribed in the town charter. Be it further resolved, the representative town meeting rejects any terms of such agreement which may be in conflict with the town charter, special act, ordinance, rule, or regulation adopted by the municipal employer or its agents of the town.
All right. Thank you. So this is a substitute resolution which effectively replaces the word approves in each place with the word rejects. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, thank you. Will a member please move the adoption of the substitute resolution?
So moved.
The substitute resolution on item 37 has been moved and seconded. May we have the reports of the committees that considered this? We'll begin with the Labor Contracts Committee. Mr. Ozesmir, Chair.
Thank you. And I want to repeat the welcome to Emmett. The committee definitely enjoyed working with him and look forward to productive discussions in the future. The Labor Contracts Committee met to discuss and act on the September RTM call on September 8th. The call contains 3 labor contracts, item 35 GMEA and item 36 LIUNA, and item 37 UPSEU. The town withdrew items 35 and 36 because the unions were not able to meet and ratify the contracts before the RTM regular meeting date of September 21. The reason described for that was, the difficulty of organizing union meetings during COVID. Item 37, which is in front of us, is the nurses union. The nurses union did meet last week, and they did ratify this contract. So therefore, it is appropriate that the RTM considers it. We do expect the GMEA and the LIUNA contracts to be presented at the October RTM meeting. We met with Emmett Hibson, and he presented item 37 on behalf of the First Selectman. Some details on the contract. This is our smallest contract. The town covers 6 different negotiating units. This is the smallest. It covers 21 nurses. Of the 21, 18 are school nurses that work 10 months a year, and 3 are public health nurses in the town that work 12 months. The total value of the contract is $10.2 million over 4 years. The contract covers the years fiscal 20 to 23, and therefore, as noted, the contract is retroactive to July 1, 2019. Effectively, we're approving a contract that is already almost a year and a half in existence. Likewise, the negotiations started quite a while ago. The negotiations started on May 9th, 2019, and a tentative agreement was not reached until August 27th, 2020. Again, that's almost a year and a half. This delay is obvious, is part of function of just the negotiating process, but also a function of COVID and the disruption to discussions over the second quarter of this year. The town made 13 requests to the union. 10 of those were minor wording issues, which the union agreed to. The town also conceded a few minor wording issues to the union. The town only put 2 economic issues on the table. One was wages, otherwise known as GWI, a gross wage increase, and the other was the healthcare contribution requested of the employees. Post-COVID-19, the town added a request to reduce the GWI in year 2, which is the current year, fiscal 21, to 0. The union agreed to that in return for a reduction of the healthcare contribution in year 2 from 11% to 10%. So in summary, general wage increases are 1.85 in fiscal year 20, that's a year ago, 0 this year, 2% next year, and 2.15%, for a total of 6% over 4 years. That's an average increase of 1.5%. There are also steps involved in this contract. So if you include steps, the total increase in wages is not 6% over 4 years, but 6.89%. Steps were not negotiated, but they do impact the cost of contract. It's important to realize that all but 3 of the employees of the 21 are already at the top step. Healthcare costs are projected to increase by 30% over the contract. The first 2 years are already known because we have fiscal year 20, a 7.3% increase, fiscal 21, a 6.5% increase. The next 2 years are projected at 8.6% and 7.6% are projections. The employee share of healthcare premium increases over the contract from 10%, then it goes to 12% in year 3 and 13% in year 4. With benefits, the cost of contract increases the following amounts for the 4 years: 3.04% in year 1, 1.22% in year 2, 3.3% in year 3, and 3.3% in year 4, for a total increase of 10.86%, an average increase of the 4 years of 2.86%. 0.72%. The LCC felt they were provided with very limited benchmarking information to make a decision. Basically, when we say benchmarking information, we're looking for a comparison of Greenwich labor and benefit costs versus other towns. The LCC also observes that the nurses are the highest paid amongst our peer communities and pay the lowest share of healthcare premium. They also enjoy an excellent state partnership healthcare plan, which has low deductibles. The average compensation of the 4 years per employee is $122,000 per employee. The following is the LCC discussion of the contract. The LCC was disappointed, again, by the lack of information and benchmarking. Members expressed concern that the town may not have had all the information they needed to negotiate effectively. Members noted that the contract was rich. Members also noted that the cost of the contract, 2.72% per year, was well over inflation of 1.66%. This would lead to either a reduction in services, headcount, or taxes rising faster than inflation. Emmett noted that the town achieved lower GWI than the average settlement and arbitration award. Emmett did share with us the arbitration and settlement awards over this period, and they averaged around 2%, whereas we did achieve a lower number on the GWI. Greenwich, however, already paid the highest levels, and our healthcare percentage contribution by the employees was much lower. Members also noted that, again, I'm sorry, I just said that. Specifically, we provide many benefits that other towns do not. For example, the supplemental 401k benefit that no other of 168 Connecticut towns provide. Our 6 days were also well in excess of other towns, and our 4% contribution to pension was low. Members of the committee were glad to see that the town achieved a 0% GWI in fiscal 21 when they reopened the tentative agreement after COVID-19. The LCC was disappointed to see that healthcare share only increased to 13% in year 4. The LCC had expected higher contributions in line with the 16% that was achieved in the GOSHA and GEA contracts. Members were also concerned that there was no contract language around work at home and the issue of essential workers, given the contract is going to be approved post-COVID-19. Emmett informed the committee that only items raised in June 2019, over a year and a half ago, could be negotiated. And that was the reason the town was unable to get any contract terms related to work at home. The LCC acknowledged that the contract was mostly baked by the time Emmett joined and thanked him for his work on the contract. Some members felt that the LCC goals were ignored. Again, the LCC did meet with the previous labor negotiator before the contract negotiations started. It is possible that some of this was due to a handoff to a new labor negotiator and the fact that many of the terms of the contract, negotiating terms, could not be added halfway into the contract. Again, the LCC voiced appreciation for Emmett's openness and willingness to improve the process. In the end, members felt that the town didn't ask enough, particularly on healthcare contribution. The LCC then discussed with Emmett how an arbitration process would work if the RTM rejected the contract. Emmett noted that arbitration is an important tool that can result in better terms for the town. He noted that the town already had taken the decision that arbitration was necessary in the current firefighters contract. Members also noted that in the case of the last Teamsters contract, the town was successful in arbitration after the RTM rejected the contract. Emmett, however, advised against arbitration on this contract, primarily because the town only asked for employees to pay 14% health care in year 4. So the town's upside in arbitration would be to move that from 13% to 14%, which would have a monetary value of $15,000. He felt the town could lose the 0% GWI in year 2. He stated that if the town lost on GWI and won on healthcare, the economics would cancel out and the result would be a wash. The town, however, would have to pay legal and arbitration fees. Emmett, however, did mention that before arbitration, if the RTM did reject the contract, there would still be one last chance to negotiate. Your LCC voted 5-1-1 to postpone indefinitely. To be clear, a motion to postpone allows the contract to become effective, but without the RTM affirming support. The committee felt that since this was a very rich contract, an affirmative support of the contract was not affirmative, but felt that the benefits of arbitration were limited and therefore it suggested postponing indefinitely. The no vote felt that the contract should be rejected outright and an arbitration could be won. The abstain vote felt that while it was a bad contract, the result of arbitration would be a wash. The two alternates voted 2-0 to postpone indefinitely. Mr. Moderator, I will make a motion to postpone indefinitely at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you. Kimberly Blank, Chair of our Education Committee.
Hi. We heard from Emmett Hibson, Director of Labor Relations for the town, also from Dan Ozismir, Chair of the LCC, Lucia Jansen, Chair of the BOC, and Peter Bernstein, Chairman of the Board of Ed, who also sits on their Labor Negotiations Committee. Since Dan has already gone through the details of this contract, I'll focus on our discussion. Members of our committee expressed several concerns about both the content of this agreement and the process of negotiations. Some expressed concern about the overall size of the general wage increases, especially as they compare to inflation, and since our pay is already the highest in the state. They also felt that we should have been asking for greater increases in their healthcare contributions. Some were unhappy that the contract was agreed on after the pandemic crisis, but includes no work rules regarding COVID, such as definition of essential employees or work from home rules and expectations. Mr. Hibson explained that once the negotiations have been opened, no new terms can be introduced, and that the pandemic occurred after the initial terms had been laid out. He did say that he believes the town is working on these types of regulations for all of its workers, and they may be discussed as part of an interim bargaining agreement. As for the process, there was concern that the Board of Education negotiating committee had not been involved in these negotiations. A member of the Board of Ed HR department was part of the initial negotiating team, but the agreement was never presented to the Board of Ed. Mr. Bernstein of the Board of Ed expressed frustration that they will now have to find additional unbudgeted funds to meet the retroactive portions of this agreement in a very tight budget year. While many members did not feel they needed this contract, they also did not feel it made sense to go to arbitration. Based on the estimated cost of arbitration and the potential upside if the town's terms were awarded, it would still likely cost the town money even if it won in arbitration. Some members of the committee also recognized that the school nurses are working on the front lines during this pandemic and did not believe it was right to reject the contract given these circumstances. We took a vote on a motion to postpone this item indefinitely, which would allow it to go into effect without the RTM taking action. And that vote passed 9-3-0 with districts 2, 4, and 9 voting no. Those voting no would prefer to have voted against the contract on its merits because they believe that the healthcare contribution is too low and the contract should contain provisions regarding COVID work rules. We did not take a vote on the merits of this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Basham, Chair of the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Ozismir presented to the Finance Committee and got most of the details from him. We had a discussion. We have 3 members of LCC on the Finance Committee, and we had a discussion amongst ourselves. As Mr. Ozismir mentioned, there was a lack of benchmarking data when this process began, and we were not presented with the data that they had accumulated when we had to vote on this issue in LCC. Subsequent to that, we did get some good benchmarking data, and it did become apparent to us that the contract was as rich as we had anticipated for all the reasons that Mr. Ozismir has pointed out. We took 2 votes. We voted on the merits of the contract. The vote was 11-0-0 to reject the contract on its merits. That was more to send a message that we were disappointed with the process that was used to negotiate this contract. on the agreement, or excuse me, on the motion we voted on in the LCC, which was postponed indefinitely. The committee also voted 11-0-0 to recommend that the RTM do postpone the contract indefinitely.
Thank you. Lucia Jansen, Chair of our Budget Overview Committee.
Good evening. Yes, am I on?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I haven't been on all night. As is customary for the Budget Overview Committee.
Hold on. There is a problem with your audio. It's garbled.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Well, we can.
Better?
Lucia, can you shut off your video? If you shut off your video, it might make your sound a little better. Can you try that?
Sound now. Better?
Not really.
No, not really.
Go ahead.
As is customary for the Budget Overview Committee, the BOC voted unanimously to take up this item, given the significant impact to the current and future year town budgets. The BOC reviews the contract with the focus on the budget. The contract was written. Hello?
Well, if you were calling into a radio station, they would hang up on you. The audio is horrible.
Hold on. Could she call into the phone line? You know, use the Zoom phone number to call in instead?
Yeah, does she have the number?
Would I can email it to her, the information. It's on the meeting information, but let me email her.
Or just read it out and she'll write it down.
Okay, give me a second.
I'm sorry,
All right,
Lucia.
that's okay. Well, wait a minute. First of all, the meeting ID, I'm going to need to give you the meeting ID and password. 993-4661 3345. And the password is 218-1721. And I have to get the phone number for you. Give me a second. I'm gonna hop over here. The phone number is 646-518-9805. I hope.
Hey, I'll be back.
All right. All right. And I believe, all right. Mr. Bergweger, did you return?
Yes, and I've been speaking with Glenn Canner.
We found the
copy of the purchase contract on the website. Glenn is reading through it now. I skimmed it. And I'm trying to work up some language to go into the resolution.
All right, terrific. Well, we have this item and two more, and then we'll come back to that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt one more time. Lucia, I just realized I don't know what her phone number is, but Lucia, if you're dialed in by phone, you can raise your hand by hitting *9. We may need to say that again. I'm not sure which of those phone numbers might be hers. I apologize. I should have asked.
No new numbers have joined yet. I'm watching.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Someone should mute Lucia's microphone in the meantime, because I think we're getting feedback from her.
Yeah, I think that's right. All right, but no. I don't know.
It's done, Tom.
Okay. All right, listen, we have some speakers on this item. When she joins, we'll get that report. Michael Spilo, you had signed up on this. Would you like to be recognized?
I'll defer at this stage.
Brian Rainey. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hi, this is Jen. So I think the phone number ending in 0382 has their hand up. So I think that's probably Lucy. So I'm going to recognize her. I'm going to allow her to.
All right. Yep.
All right, go ahead.
Lucia, are you there? What does she have to do to unmute her?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Perfect.
Good Lord. Okay, so I love this Zoom environment. Where was I? So we
You
already know
rejected-
the background. Dan did a great job giving you the financial background. Most importantly, he is a member of the BOC. He came to our committee and expressed the financial outcome of the contract, including the tremendous disappointment with the financial overall result. Wages increases were higher than inflation. Most importantly was the high cost of healthcare that's growing at 30.11% over the 4 years, and that employee cost share contribution was not equivalent to the marketplace to reduce in that high cost to the town. It was also shared the Board of Ed was unhappy to have not seen the final agreement, but it was later noted that the Board of Ed traditionally does not vote on contracts. So it was really, they did have a representative at the human resource representative, but the Board of Ed has a labor committee and they had not seen it, although they traditionally do not vote on the contract. Really, discussion was about the precedent in the pattern for this, for subsequent union contracts, given that that's an essential component to collective bargaining, is that pattern. And also, of course, given that we're the BOC, is the impact to service levels to the schools in the town. Most importantly, underscored in Dan's presentation was the lack of benchmark information, an area that has been a sore spot for both the LCC and the BOC, given that it has been many times over that this information is essential for analysis and approval of union contracts. I, as chair, then discussed my own research I presented to the committee to augment this sparse benchmark information. Clearly, the data revealed the personnel entered the contract #1 in wages among the 24 peer communities while paying the lowest in healthcare premium contributions. Those were the only two items presented by the town in the negotiation, and many other important points were not brought up, including the 401k supplemental that is a benefit unseen in the marketplace. The committee reacted with frustration with the data that shows clearly a firmer ask could have been made in key financial areas of the 4-year agreement. Also, there was a lot of exasperation that, again, no benchmark data. Given that the contract covers both the period of the COVID-19 shutdown as well as the current period, there was no mention of COVID-19 workplace definitions, process, or rules, and it would have been expected at minimum a paragraph mentioning a possible memorandum of understanding referring to a future town policy. The BOC voted to reject outright the agreement. The vote was 9-1-2. District 4 voted no, and Districts 8 and 10 abstained.
All right, thank you.
Yep. That's it.
All right. I'm going to now recognize Mr. Azizmir to offer the motion to postpone on behalf of the labor contracts.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Moderator. The LCC makes a motion to postpone indefinitely item 37. Postponing indefinitely will allow the contract to go in effect, and the RTM will not vote on this again. Thank you.
All right, that being offered on behalf of one of our committees, it does not require a second. Discussion on the motion to postpone. So I will call on those who had signed up on item 37. Mr. Spilo, are you still not interested?
Well, I'll speak in favor of the motion to postpone indefinitely. I think the contract is part of a longstanding problem of negotiating in town, in which the total cost of the contract is considered, but the terms are negotiated based on contractual terms instead of the actual individual pay, which is quite high and way above market rates in this instance. In any event, it seems clear that there isn't much point in sending this back to arbitration at this point, and hopefully we can make some further progress in negotiations moving forward. So I would recommend postponing indefinitely now and addressing systemic issues as we move forward.
All right, Mr. Brian Rainey, District 9.
I'll waive my time. Thank you.
Brooks Harris, District 10.
Waive my time.
All right. Next slide. Do we have a voting slide on this? Okay. So I ask the district tabulators, please mark your voting cards. LCC motion to postpone item 37 indefinitely. Once again, the motion to postpone kills the item if adopted by a majority and avoids taking a vote on the merits. If you want to vote on the merits tonight, you should vote no on the motion to postpone. If you want to kill this right now, move on, you vote yes to postponing indefinitely. All right, so proceed to pull your delegation, and we'll start the timer and we'll see what's on the playlist. Perfect timing. All right, let's stop it right there. All right, so hopefully we have the vote on that. We will now move on. Next slide, please. Next slide. All right, item 38. Is the Board of Selectmen presenting item 38? Mr. Camillo, are you presenting this? Do we have someone to present item 38? Mr. Berg, are you there? Peter Berg?
I'm here.
Could you present this, please?
So this is the acceptance of a gift of $26,497 from the Greenwich Preservation Trust for the purpose of underwriting the cost to make various repairs to the historic Thomas Lyon House.
Thank you. Will the member please move the adoption of the resolution? The resolution on item 38 has been moved and seconded. Mr. Berg, may we please have the report of the Land Use Committee?
So we had Paul Puglisi, a member of the Greenwich Preservation Trust, at our joint meeting with the Legislative and Rules Committee and the Land Use Committee this past Monday. Mr. Puglisi described the current conditions of the Thomas Lyon House, which is in need of emergency repairs. Just under $5,000 was approved by the Board of Selectmen for urgent repairs. This additional gift of $26,497 will help shore up the house further and add a dehumidifier to protect it from the elements and further deterioration. The trust is working with a town-approved construction firm. Long-term plans include raising approximately $600,000 to $800,000 for restoration and site improvements, including parking. The Land Use Committee voted unanimously 12-0-0 in favor of accepting the gift from the Greenwich Preservation Trust.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bergweger, are you available to give the Legislative and Rules report?
Yes. We also heard this from in our joint meeting with land use, and then in our separate meeting, we voted 11-0-0 on both legal order and on the merits with District 2 absent.
Thank you very much. Discussion on item 38. Mr. McKnight, did you care to speak on this?
Yes, thank you, Tom.
Yep.
In accordance with full disclosure, I am on the executive board of the Greenwich Preservation Trust and have been involved in the quest of preserving the Thomas Lyon House to its full glory. Why, you might ask, is saving a small house important? Well, preservation in this town is what maintains our character and steadies our grand list. This house, at age from circa 1695, is one of the oldest unaltered structures in the town. It is located at the gateway to our town and state, and evidence suggests it played a role in the Underground Railway to transport fugitive slaves to freedom. We as a town have lost too much of our history to modernization. I have said once before to this body that all politics is local. The history of this trek started with the call to the Byram Neighborhood Association, informing us that the Thomas Lyon House was no longer of use to the town and should be removed from our town's building list as a liability. Our association set up a subcommittee to study the historic significance of the house to Byram and the town. This soon morphed into the Greenwich Preservation Trust with the initial purpose and goal of being to preserve and fully restore the Thomas Lyon House. Due to years of benign neglect, this structure has deteriorated to the point of almost unsalvageability. I said almost. With the Board of Selectmen's recent approval of $4,498 and the approval of this body to accept our gift of $26,497, overdue emergency repairs can start to secure the house prior to full preservation, with a second gift, which will be presented to the RTM for its approval also. Please approve this gift so people entering our town can witness Greenwich's historic character as they drive up Route 1, past the fully preserved Thomas Lyon House, the preserved post office, and the Putnam Cottage Knox Tavern campus. Thank you.
Excellent work. Thank you very much. All right, next slide, please. Will our district tabulators please mark their voting cards, item 38, and proceed to poll the delegation.
2 more to go.
All right, thank you. We will now move on. I do have the results of the vote on the LCC motion to postpone the labor contract, item 37. Those in favor, 193, opposed 15, abstaining 3. All right, we have 2 more items. Item 39, the body cameras. We have Greenwich Chief of Police Jim Heavey to present that item. Chief Heavey.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator, members of the RTM. Resolved that the Greenwich Police Department requests an approval of an interim funding in the amount of $359,298 to be added to account Zulu 213-59000 body worn cameras. Thank you.
Thank you. Will a member please move the adoption of the resolution? Resolution on item 39 has been moved and seconded. May we have the reports? All right, that's a separate item. I don't have that in front of me currently. Town Services, you want to give your report? Richard Newman.
Sure. Chief Heavey presented the item 39 to us on Tuesday, a few days after the BET voted 11-0-0 to approve it. Town Services has discussed body cams with the police department over previous years, though it was not on the capital or in any of our budgets because the previous administration did not feel they were needed. State law changed, and now they are mandated as of January 1st, 2021. The department had done a lot of research on body cams, and we went with a company called Axon, which there are a few reasons that we went with Axon. Axon supplies the tasers to the police department right now, and they will work together with body cams and another mandate starting in July 2022, which is that all cars will have dashboard cameras in them. Certain functions, if an officer touches his taser or if he touches his firearm, the cameras will automatically turn on, linking to themselves. Also, a small item included with the dashboard cameras, they will now include license plate readers, which in previous capital budgets we've paid for and recently approved retrofitting some of the ones or replacing some of the ones. So this will eliminate the need for license plate readers on the cars, helping offset the price a little bit. This is a 5-year contract, which in the first year is purchase of the cameras and data storage. And in the following years, we're paying for the data storage. They will be replacing the cameras in approximately 2 years when a new model comes out, and that's included in this cost. Some of the concerns that we had were what's going to happen with the data. What is the process for freedom of information, which was all spelled out in the packet that Chief Heavey gave us, coming out of a legislative research report out of Hartford. Most of our concerns were allayed on the freedom of information rules. There were questions about using the school resource officer using them. And as it was pointed out, the schools now are already monitored and recorded. Almost all of the schools, almost all the possible places that a student could run into a police resource officer. So it was not really a problem. One of the positives we saw that with the new police accountability rules, so these cameras will help officers defend themselves if they are charged under these new rules. We also had some concerns about it being an interim appropriation. I think most of those concerns were alleviated by Chief Heavey. And at the end, we voted 11-1-0. And the no vote was because the member wanted it in the normal budget process, not an interim appropriation. And he also wanted it to go through the purchasing department, not a contract picked with Axon. That's all.
Thank you. Mike Basham with the Finance Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Deputy Chief Bob Berry presented to us. We primarily had 2 questions. One was, why is this not part of the normal budget process? And what about the dashboard cameras? He told us that there could be grants available to help offset this interim request, but we had to get it. I think that because of the normal, if we waited for the next budget cycle, it would exceed the period of time when the grant could be applied for. So they had to go ahead and be in a position to apply for it now. Secondly, they were also because of the need for training and getting cameras installed and training and data management and what have you, it was better to start sooner than later. As far as the dashboard cameras were concerned, he mentioned that we have 160 body cameras that will be installed and have to be dealt with. There are only 20 dashboard cameras involved, so they felt it was better to go ahead and move forward with 160 before they got around to the body cameras. We were satisfied with that, and the committee voted 11-0-0 to approve it.
Thank you. Discussion on item 39. Adam Leader, District 11.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Adam Leader, Leader.
I'm Adam Leader, District 11. I support this proposal, but wish the town had implemented a data privacy policy or ordinance first. I don't believe this proposal and state law and policy alone reflects our community's complete privacy protection expectations. These cameras can capture extra unnecessary resident data, even if they are bystanders, engaging in First Amendment activity or aiding law enforcement, say by viewing residential security footage with a detective inside your home. State law and policy provides some civil liberty protections to officers, victims, perpetrators, bystanders, and other uninvolved citizens. But these existing protections have not been carefully reviewed by Greenwich to decide if they alone are sufficient and appropriate for our community today with the addition of body cameras. Perhaps Greenwich guidelines should be more restrictive than the state's existing baseline. Maybe not. Who has or will review this? I recommend the first selectman as police commissioner review the civil liberty and FOIA impact of Greenwich police body cameras and publish a more protective Greenwich police privacy policy and report it to the RTM. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Spilo, to be followed by Hale McSherry.
I'll pass.
Hale McSherry, District 5.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Hale McSherry with District 5. The issue of police accountability is very important to me. It's, in fact, one of the reasons I ran for RTM in the first place. I rise to speak against this item only to instill a healthy critique on what some may consider spending money on a feel-good solution despite mixed data on its effectiveness. A 2017 study in Washington, D.C. examined more than 2,000 officers and found that body cameras had a negligible effect on officer behavior. A 2018 study of 504 officers in the Milwaukee Police Department found that body cameras had no effect on the likelihood officers would use force in the course of their duties. Police accountability under body cameras is also questionable. 20 out of 26 studies measuring citizen complaints and body cameras show a sizable reduction in citizen complaints against officers wearing cameras, but the presence of body cameras does not have much effect on whether disciplinary action is taken against police officers. As evidenced by the number of horrifying videos of police violence caught on camera, such as the murder of George Floyd and the shooting of Jacob Blake, I do not believe that being on camera effectively stops police from committing violence. As evidenced by the number of police who have evaded accountability, even though their acts of violence are captured on film, I do not believe that cameras substantially help hold police officers accountable for acts of violence. Experts in police violence prevention are clear. The only surefire way to reduce incidents of police violence is to reduce the amount of contact that police departments have with the rest of the community. This is accomplished through reducing funding for police departments and reappropriating those funds into social services that eliminate the root causes of crime, namely education, housing, and jobs. Giving additional funding to the police in order to reduce police violence is not a fiscally responsible decision. Also, in the name of fiscal responsibility, I find it troubling that this body cameras proposal was not subject to a competitive bidding process from vendors. At our last meeting in June, during budget proceedings, we justified sharp budget cuts to vital town departments, including education, despite public outcry in the face of a simultaneous pandemic and economic recession. Seeing as both the pandemic and recession are ongoing, it feels wrong to endorse an interim appropriation of this value to the police, a department which never seems to be for lack of funding in a town like Greenwich. While I'm not against the concept of police-worn body cameras on principle, I plan on voting against this interim appropriation and would encourage the Greenwich Police Department to come back to the RTM for body camera funding during budget proceedings next spring. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Craig, we're going to skip right to slide 85. Okay. No, you had it. 85? Back? Nope, back. Maybe the number's up. All right, sorry. So we're going to vote. Will the district tabulators please mark your voting cards, item 39, and proceed to poll your delegation. All right, thank you. I have the result of the vote on item 38. That was the gift, the acceptance of the gift. Those in favor, 212. Opposed, 1, abstaining, 0. Item 38 has carried. All right, so there are actually two items remaining. We got to go back to item 14, take that from the table. And then I told you there was there will be a motion to consider a non-agenda item. So at this time, Ms. Bergweger, are we ready to go back to 14?
Yes.
All right, so the motion to take from the table is not debatable. So I need a motion and a second to take
So
item
moved.
14.
Second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to take item 14 from the table. It is not debatable, it is not amendable, and it requires a majority vote. So let me ask this, is there any objection to taking this from the table? If there is, we'll proceed to a raised hand vote. I will wait to allow any attendees to contact their district representative, asking if there's any objection to the motion to take item 14 from the table. Hearing none, the motion to take from the table may be adopted upon unanimous consent. All right, so item 14 is back before us. Mr. Bergweger?
Could you go to the slide that has the legislative and rules proposed amendment?
Next slide.
Yes, that one. Well, this doesn't have the first resolve, but we're going to retain that. But Glenn Canner and I glanced quickly through the agreement. Glenn was looking at it. We came up with some language, and we would amend the "be it further resolved" paragraph to read as follows. Be it further resolved that the first selectman of the town of Greenwich be hereby authorized to enter into and execute parentheses 1, close parentheses, the contract of sale on behalf of the town between Aquarium Water Company of Connecticut as seller and the town of Greenwich and the Greenwich Land Trust Inc. as purchaser, substantially in the form presented to the Board of Selectmen at its July 22, 2020 meeting, comma, and then parentheses 2, close parentheses, the language that we have, and then at the end, comma, parentheses 3, close parentheses, such other customary documents as may be required to complete the transaction.
All right.
I know that's kind of hard to follow because I read it quickly, but.
All right, and that satisfies the concerns that your committee had?
Well, Glenn Canner and I find this acceptable.
Okay. Mr. Marino, does that satisfy your concerns?
Yes, it does.
All right. So, Craig, can we quickly try? Well, let me ask.
Give it a little slower, I could do it. I tried to type as he was going, but he lost me.
All right. So there are that the first resolve in the call remains unchanged. And then the second, so let me get the item 14 in the call before me.
Kip, it's Alexis. If you email that to me, Craig and I can try and coordinate it on the back end. If you email what you've just read to me, we can try and do a slide.
Yeah, I can drop it in, no problem.
As long as you have text. If you just text it, email, whatever you just read, email it to me, and Craig and I will try and type up a slide real quick for you.
Okay.
Everybody can see it. Thank you.
All right. Okay, we'll do that.
I think it just makes it easier because it was quite a lot of language, and then we can see what we have.
I was going to paraphrase, but that's okay. I have the result of the vote on item 39. That's the body cameras. Those in favor, 182, opposed, 17, abstaining, 16. Item 39 has carried. And I thank everybody for their cooperation in trying to come up with language here. While we're waiting, I don't mean to distract you, Craig, but could you put the thank you slide up?
Sure. Hold on.
I can't tell you how much work goes into preparing for these meetings, particularly one with as many agenda items as this, with as many proposed motions that came out of our committees addressed. The whole intent is to make sure everybody follows along, and it is so much easier to have a visual with proposed amendments. And this all comes from Alexis Vulgaris. And without these slides, it would be so much more difficult for us. And you just heard how she is intent on the detail, providing you with the nitty-gritty details. And we are just so much better off for that. So she prepared this slide and of course left her name off of it. So I just want, first and foremost in my mind, Alexis Vulgaris deserves our thanks for organizing us in this horrendous environment. At least that's my perspective. But followed very closely by our assistant town clerk, Kim Spezzano, who works on weekends, after hours, and is so responsive. Excellent. And I thank Kim. Kim and Alexis are working hand in glove, and we are so much the better off for the work that they do. So thank you, Alexis and Kim. Jenny Larkin and Craig Jones are the experts at this, and how seamlessly they make the technology work for us and protect us, the security of our platform here. The district tabulators, I don't know if you've noticed, but these votes are coming through so quickly and efficiently. And I thank all of the district tabulators and the district representatives who act as the voice for the attendees. It's just, I'm sorry that we have to have these two different categories, but we do. And I hope everyone understands that. And then, of course, the staff at GCTV, who is so responsive and getting the recordings up online and bringing them out live. And so many of our members and community members are following this meeting on GCTV, and we are most grateful to the work that they do. All right, how are we doing with our item 14?
We're still waiting for Kip to send us something.
Kip,
Can we go to the non-agenda item while we're waiting?
Well, we could, but technically this is before us and we'd have to set it aside again. And I don't want to do that because this shouldn't be taking that long. Kip, has that been sent out?
I haven't received it. If it has, neither has Craig, so I think we're still, and I can see
All right,
Kip in the back sort of typing.
Craig, can you put that slide up again for item 14? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to put some, all right, so after the word execute, in parentheses, number 1.
Hold on, let me.
Yeah, I'd like to try and edit this because I don't know how long it's going to take.
Tom, given the situation, is it okay to do a verbal edit?
That's what I'm about to do.
Okay, thank you.
I'm waiting. Craig, you're going to edit this. Can you share your screen with the edit?
Maybe. Try to give it to me, and I'll.
Oh, I was just going to say,
Yeah, I have to stop sharing the screen to edit. I have the slide now in Word, so I can edit it if you give it to me.
All right, so after execute, number 1 in parentheses. The contract of sale on behalf of the town between Aquarian Water as seller and the town of Greenwich and Greenwich Land Trust as purchaser.
Oh, sorry, it's been a long time since I typed that fast. Execute, number 1, the contract of sale
on behalf of the town of Greenwich.
So, on behalf. Okay. On behalf of the town of Greenwich.
Between Aquarian Water Company as seller.
Yep.
And the town of Greenwich and the Greenwich Land Trust as purchaser.
Okay.
And then I guess semicolon number 2 in parens. And then what you see there, starting with the grant of conservation easement. All the way down to period. And then number 3.
Grant of conservation easement.
Well, I guess you can leave that whole thing in there. So number 2, the grant of conservation. So you're not editing anything further. Just number 2, the grant of conservation, all the way down to at its September 2020 meeting. And then number 3.
Number 3. Okay.
All right. And what was the language there? Such other and customary agreements as required for the transaction, something like that.
Sorry it took so long, but I just sent it to Alexis.
Thanks, Kip. All right. Craig, I'm gonna send this.
I'll just wait
to you.
for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sending it to you right now.
I will say my 9th grade typing teacher would have been proud of me there. That was pretty good.
You should, I don't know if I sent it to both of your email addresses, okay?
Okay.
And you can just, it's pretty well formatted. You can just drag and drop in the slide. You get it?
Got it.
Good, perfect. Thanks, Kip. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you. Did that just change?
Not on my screen.
Not on ours. It's still 14.
Sorry, let me try again. Oh,
It's way up at the top.
yeah, I see that. Ugh.
Oh,
Ah. All right. All right, I'm sorry. I'm just going to stop for a second.
you know what we would do if we were in person? Mr. Bergweger would have read it, and I would say, is there anyone who needs it to be read again?
All right. I think I got it.
And then we would vote on it. Not that I don't want you to see it in writing.
Can you see it?
Well, depends how close you are to your monitor, I guess.
Yes, we
All
can
right, all right.
see it, Craig. Thank you very much for doing it so much on the fly. I appreciate that.
All right. So we do have it in writing. Does anyone want it to be read again? Oh, perfect. All right. So now I can read it. So we have 1, the contract, 2, the grant of conservation easement. And is there a 3 there?
Next to last line.
Right. Such other customary documents as may be required to complete the transaction. All right. So we're in business now. This is, I guess, an individual motion to amend at this point, Mr. Bergweger?
Yes.
All right. And is there a second?
Second.
All right. It has been moved and seconded to amend item 14 as we have just discussed. We can adopt amendments upon unanimous consent. Is there any objection to this motion to amend offered by Mr. Bergweger? Hearing none, that motion that motion to amend is adopted upon unanimous consent. All right, we will now proceed to vote on item 14 as amended. I think,
Mr. Moderator, discussion on item 14?
yeah, we'll have discussion, sure. Let's see what we got here. Michael Spilo.
Pass.
Mr. Rainey, did you want to discuss? Because that's the only sign up I had.
And given the frankly extreme change to this situation with this other contract, that I am at a loss myself to read all of this in due time.
Is that all you want to say? Because we're going to vote on this. If you don't.
Yeah,
if
and I would like to make a motion to postpone.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I've got John Eddy, who has a point of information.
Well, before I go to Mr. Eddy, is there a second to Mr. Rainey's motion to postpone item 14 to October?
Tom,
Who's that?
it's Susan Fahey, District 11. I have Ronald Strackbine who wants to speak.
Well, can someone answer my question? Is there a second? Does he want to second it?
John Eddy would like to second.
All right, so it has been moved and seconded to postpone item 14 to our October meeting. Discussion on the motion to postpone. All right, so let's take those who have just indicated, because I have no other signups. Mr. Spilo is the only one who I had who signed up. So Mr. Eddy, District 8, speaking on the motion to postpone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Whoa, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I have a point of information. Can Mr. Bergweger let us know how many people on the, I'm sorry, I have a delay. I can't hear, sorry. Can Mr. Bergweger let me know how many people on the Legislative and Rules Committee did not see the documents that are now referenced in the revised, the amended resolution?
All of them.
Well,
okay, thank you very much.
The grant of conservation easement number 2, it was in the attachments.
That was the only thing they saw, which is why they drafted what they did. They did not see the contract of sale, which is now referenced in number 1. All right, and who, Ms. Fahey, who else wanted to speak?
I have Allison Walsh who'd like to speak.
Ms. Fahey?
It was Ronald Strackbine, Mr. Moderator, out of District.
All right, can we bring up Ronald Strackbine, please?
Mr. Bergweger, please mute his mic when he's not speaking. He has something making noise in the background.
That's a harp.
Mr. Moderator, just one quick question. I did hear reference during the discussion earlier of an agreement that has to be entered into with Greenwich Land Trust relative to the maintenance of the property under policies overseen.
I'm sorry, well, hang on. Who is speaking?
This is Ronald Strackbine, a member of the
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And I'm only just quickly just wanted to ask whether or not the proposed resolution is complete insofar as addressing all the items that I've heard tonight. One of the contracts that I heard was the contract to be entered into between the town and the Greenwich Land Trust with respect to the maintenance of the property pursuant to policies under town policies. And I just wondered whether that has to be item number 3 or item number 4.
So we're speaking on a motion to postpone. So I take it you want to postpone?
I was just commenting on the, the sufficiency of the existing resolution to address what was stated during the meeting. That's all.
I think at this point, we are either going to postpone this to October or vote on the amendment. And if you think it needs to further be amended, you can make such a motion.
Okay, then I'm making a motion that it also includes a reference to the agreement that I heard mentioned that had to be entered into with the Greenwich Land Trust relative to the maintenance of the property.
All right, your motion to amend does not have priority. Hang on a minute.
Mr. Moderator,
Yeah,
Did I note that I left out, I forgot to delete the words right under the two. It says on behalf of the town with Aquarian Water Company, that should come out. So it'll be just on behalf of the town with Greenwich Land Trust.
yes, okay.
Tom,
Greg.
Glenn Canner would like to speak.
Craig, do you see that?
With
In number two,
town with
take out the reference to Aquarian in number 2, not in number 1.
that.
I have Allison Walsh who'd like to speak from District 3.
And Glenn Canner from District 12.
All right, so we have made that change. All right, Allison Walsh, District 3, speaking on the motion to postpone. Well, I'm sorry. So Mr. Strackbine had made a motion to amend, to add something else, and I was just looking up in the new 12th edition Robert's Rules, which doesn't change what I'm about to say, but I like to know where it is in the new volume. A motion to postpone takes priority over a motion to amend. So the motion to postpone is before us. Your motion to amend would have to await the resolution of our motion to postpone. Allison Walsh, District 3.
Hi. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I just wanted to know if Mr. Marino is still with us so that, like, because I have some questions about the steps of this transaction that normally I wouldn't be asking before the whole body, but we have.
Okay. All right, excuse me. We're speaking on the motion to postpone only. Do you want to say anything on the motion to postpone?
Well, I just thought that we had some answers from Mr. Marino about a couple of quick questions, it might give a lot of people some comfort that this is a good thing that this is a good agreement to be approving.
That's a different issue. Listen,
Okay.
we have to limit our discussion to what is before us. You heard Pat Sesto say there's some urgency to getting this approved tonight. So that really is the issue before us. Are we gonna?
Tom?
Yes.
Glenn Canner from District 12 would like to speak.
Who?
Glenn Canner from District 12 would like to speak.
I heard that.
Okay.
He's on the list. He is on the list. So I'm now talking to Allison Walsh. And do you have anything you want to say about the motion to postpone? Should we approve it or should we not?
No, I don't think we should postpone, but there's some questions that I still have.
Well, we have to dispose of this first. Glenn Canner, District 12. You have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Respectfully, I would oppose the motion to postpone. It does state in section 17.1, the standard rule in real estate, that a contract does not survive the closing. So when Mr. Eddy understandably asks if legislative and rules had reviewed the operative documents, respectfully, I maintain that all of our rights and obligations are really set forth in the grant of easement, which we did have time to study, and that the contract is just the conduit to get us to that easement. So yes, we're regretful that legislative and rules did not review the contract. I have. It does appear to be a fairly standard purchase and sale agreement, but again, it does not survive the closing, which should be soon. So I would request that the motion to postpone be denied.
All right. Other speakers on the motion to postpone? I did not write anyone else down. Did any district representative call out another name? Any?
I have a Don Conway would like to speak.
All right, Don Conway. District 2, Don Conway.
Unmute. All right. Good evening. This thing is a simple little buy and transfer. Please, folks, don't build into all kinds of garbage. We're buying this land from the water company to preserve it. The town of Greenwich will own it. It then transfers into the land trust, which means nobody can screw around with it later on to build houses or do something with it. So please, let's just get through with it. Buy it. It's a great bargain, and we'll have fantastic open space back there. Thank you.
All right, that's a don't postpone. Do we have any additional speakers on the motion to postpone?
Yes, District 1, Tom, I have Ryan Oka.
Ryan Oka, District 1.
Just echoing the sentiment that was just said and just adding that if postponing actually does mean that we don't have this opportunity next month, it would be a shame for us to lose this great opportunity. And so I would say vote no to postpone and then vote no to postpone.
Further discussion on the motion to postpone. Pat Sesto, did you want to weigh in on this?
The motion to postpone, I wouldn't support, and the language has been amended is perfect.
I'd like to call the question.
All right. Will the district chairs please mark your vote? All right. Shall we try? This is a procedural postponement proposal. Shall we try a raised hand vote?
Yes.
All right. So if you are in favor of this motion, by the way, was this a Brian Rainey motion?
Mr. Moderator, yes.
I believe it was.
All right. So this is a vote on the Rainey motion to postpone item 14 to the October meeting. If you are in favor of doing so, please raise your hand now. I see 11. All right. I see 13. All right, please, let's lower those hands. Do you have another slide for this, Craig? All right. I will now call for all those opposed to the motion to postpone. Please raise your hand. All right. So we have, it looks like about 151. So the motion has failed. All right, back to item 14 as amended. We have amended by adding the language that is shown there on the slide. Any further discussion on this? All right, do we have a voting slide?
Yes, we do.
Greg? This is a vote, with the timer for item 14. All right, next slide. All right, could you just change that to item 14 as amended, please?
Sure.
Take out substitute. Item 14, comma, as amended.
Can we start the clock though, Tom?
Sure.
Isn't running right now.
Can we pass out the drinks, please?
All right, item 14.
Item 14 as amended.
Where's the music?
Take out substitute. Perfect. All right. And please proceed to poll your delegation. Start the clock. What's on the playlist? All right, thank you. All right, so we will need to await the final tally on that vote, but you do know there is one final item. Carl Higbee of District 8 would like to propose an ordinance. It is not on our agenda, so we will first have to take up a motion to consider a non-agenda item, which would need to be adopted by a 2/3 majority. That will not be debatable. So, Mr. Higbee, Carl Higbee of District 8, I recognize you for the purpose of making that motion.
Good afternoon, or good evening, actually, at this point. I appreciate it. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll be real brief with this. The town of Greenwich and its affiliates and employees will support mask wearing as a personal choice only. The town of Greenwich will not allow nor enforce any government mask requirements for individuals or businesses within the town limits. All persons of the town of Greenwich, whether residents or not, have the choice to wear a mask. Private businesses of town of Greenwich have the choice to request patrons wear a mask or face covering. Part 2 is the town of Greenwich will not require or enforce upon any business or commerce to cease slow operations or close in response to COVID China virus protocols. Now, this bill is about letting individuals make decisions pertaining to themselves and their businesses. It's about freedoms that we enjoy that are uniquely American. This bill only seeks to govern what we can as a town. It does not circumvent state law, so that's not an issue. This bill does not ban masks. It does not question the efficacy of masks themselves. Okay, it does not ban masks. I repeat, if you want to wear a mask, fine. If you want to take precautions, go ahead. This bill is about the role of government and how far it can go. I realize here some people have said that they're offended by the name of the bill, my body, my choice, my business, my choice. Offended is what people do who don't have a valid counter argument. I'm also sensitive to the fact that people have lost friends and family to COVID. So have I, and it's tragic. But it's not a legitimate argument for unilateral government control. This bill is 2 parts. It addresses mask mandates, not whether you should or shouldn't wear a mask. It just talks about the mandates. The first one is, do mask mandates work? If you read my op-ed, you would see very...
All right, Mr. Higbee, I'm going to stop you there. So all we need to know is generally what the bill is about, and I think you've done that.
Right. The second part is government. The town of Greenwich can't shut down government like we did the last time before the state did. And I don't want to look that same mother in the eye, the mother of 3 who lost her job, that I spoke to after this whole thing, that was deemed her business was not essential.
All right. So we know what you're proposing. You're proposing an ordinance as you just described. We are not debating that now, whether that would be a good thing or a bad thing. All we are going to do, and Craig, we have a slide for a motion to take up a non-agenda item. I'm not sure what it is now in your deck, but it was right before the thank you slide. All right, so there it is. All right, so let me ask first, is there a second to Mr. Higbee's motion to take up this non-agenda item?
I have Laura Gladstone from District 2.
All right, so she has seconded it. This is not a debatable issue. We are going to vote, and if we get a 2/3 vote to take it up, then we will debate and see where things go. So this motion is now.
Sorry, we have are you doing a record vote on this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Thank you. I just got somebody who wants to make sure everything's a record vote from here on out. I apologize.
So we are now going to vote on Mr. Higbee's motion to take up a non-agenda item, which he has described as a proposed ordinance. It requires a 2/3 vote in the affirmative to pass. So will the district tabulators please mark your voting cards? Higbee motion to take up a non-agenda item and proceed to poll your delegation. You may start the timer. Let me just interrupt for a moment. Obviously, we didn't need a timer on this. We must wait for the final vote, and I don't have it yet. I do have the result of the vote on item 14 as amended. This is item 14, the purchase of the easement. Those in favor, 192, opposed 2, abstaining 4. Item 14 has carried. I'm told we're waiting on districts 1 and 12. So if we could please expedite those votes, would be greatly appreciated.
Greg, can you play the music?
May I ask District 1 if there's a problem that we can help with?
I've already submitted the voting
It
card.
was submitted, yeah. It was
So
submitted.
it's coming right now.
All right, we have the result on the motion to take up a non-agenda item. Those in favor, 22, opposed 170, abstaining 2. That motion has failed. There being no further business to come before the meeting, this meeting stands adjourned. That final slide, there we go. Our next meeting will be October 26th. Thank you all. Appreciate your cooperation. Good night, everybody.